All right, what is up, Bulldogs? All right, I'm here with Rollo Tomassi, the famous, the man, the myth, the legend, and he's going to break down. Actually, I did this interview on Beauty Ass Beast with the beauty pageant queen, and he did one for John MLD channel, and I thought that was really insightful. So I thought, okay, let's do the same thing here. And it's the same girl, actually, but I think what you guys will find is that she had a completely different story, completely different, completely changed. And
People
so I
love
think it'll
these things, man. People really love these things. Like when we're doing breakdown videos, but it's more fun, I think, when it's in real time. But I think really what these videos do, and I'm wondering if there's some way I can do these like on the regular, but a lot of people they get a lot of value out of seeing like sort of a play-by-play. It's like I'm the John Madden of down game or something. I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun. So we'll I guess maybe we'll just get started on it then. Might as well jump in here. So okay, let me share this here and then start from the beginning here, I guess. And
be fulfilling for anyone. I don't think that's a good arrangement for anyone. But in general, like the
actually here, I didn't realize that was in the beginning. Here we go.
Women are attracted to men that other women are attracted to in general. And one of those selection criteria is this guy beating out everyone else? Is he beating out the other men and becoming the top dog? That's what it means to be alpha, is to be the top dog, essentially, right? And so that's, it's not really a superficial level thing then. Yeah, I mean, if you're a sugar baby and you're looking for the 6-year-old guy with a lot of money, that's a totally different thing, and that's not going to be fulfilling for anyone. I don't think that's a good arrangement for anyone. But in general, like the just the raw attractiveness that women have towards men with money has, I mean, would you disagree that it has to do with that?
But what if you are the one making the money and you happen to meet a guy who has no money and you fall in love with him? What if you're the boss? What if you're the alpha is what I'm saying?
That'll never work.
We're in new times, brother. We're in new times.
No, it doesn't change. It doesn't
I
change.
mean,
you're going to be sexually attracted to some guy that's making less money than you.
All right, hold on that one right there.
Hey guys, Stephanie here, founder of Miss USA International.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point right there. That's a really good one to start with here. So, So what you guys were talking about was like financial, like this. What's funny is I think when women are talking about like making more money, you are accurately, deducing, I guess, that that men have to have competency, and part of our competency is being able to produce more resources than we consume, than we use, and that's just something that's an evolutionary as far back as when we were on the savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, that was a selection criteria for women, and it still is today. And I can prove that to you because I can show you article after article that were actually just came up, I think back in February or January, that I was seeing. Or no, maybe it was November last year. But anyways, it was about 6 or 8 months ago. Article after article about how women could not find economically attractive partners to be married to. So, and I forget how old she is. I think John mentioned she was in her mid-20s. So I'm just going to peg her for being like, what, 25 or 26, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think so. In the interview, I actually said, "What are you? You must be like 27." And she said, I think she acknowledged it. I'm not entirely sure, but I was kind of.
I think she is maybe mid to late 20s. That's I'm old. I would not. I thought she was older than that when I was talking with John from Modern Life Dating. Anyways, regardless, let's just say she's 25, 26, somewhere around there. When women say, "Oh, I money doesn't matter," what if you fall in love with a poor guy, right? It's like, well, what you're presuming is that sounds right, is what that is. That sounds like something appropriate and politically correct to say, when we can see statistically and in practice that that's simply not how women select men. Women select men who are anywhere between 3 to 7 years older than they are, and usually 5 to 7 years older, depending on the demographic, right? So like younger women tend to select guys who are like between 3 to 5, whereas older women tend to select men who are between 5 and 7. So that's why I make that range like 3 to 7 right there. So there is that. There's also, Rich Cooper's famous saying, I guess, which is that, women don't care about the struggle. They just wait at the finish line and they bang the winners.
Exactly.
And so the fact that, the fact that men have been selected for competency and dominance, like you were trying to make that point here. You're trying to say, well, the top dog, right? That's what makes a guy alpha, is the guy who pretty much lifts himself up above the pack, kind of thing. And that, in simplistic terms, that's true, right? That's the dominance hierarchy. There's also a competence hierarchy too. And the competence hierarchy is the man who can produce more resources than he can consume. And the reason for that is because the presumption is that he's going to be generous with those resources and give them to a woman or a wife or children and provide for them in the long term. And so to say, well, I will fall in love with what if a girl falls in love with a guy who's poor? Well, there's got to be something that offsets that long term. Women are interested in long term security. If a guy doesn't have a job, or if the guy loses his job, the clock starts ticking. And what he loses is not so much money, like as we would say, well, money is this, or it's material or whatever. And that sounds real nice and religious and everything else. But the fact is that the criteria for which she selected that guy has now been removed. And now he's seen as a liability and a responsibility, instead of the guy who's going to share the resources that she selected him for in the first place. According to those the articles and the stats that I was looking at when I was reading about the economic unattractiveness of men, women, like they asked women, say, well, what does the guy have to do to be economically attractive? And I think it was either Morgan Stanley or maybe it was Forbes or something like that. They broke down the numbers and it said that women are looking for a man who makes 58% more money than they do to be considered their equal.
to be their equal. Exactly. Right.
So when we're talking about this, I can break those things down, and I can, what I'm doing right here is, again, and I probably should have said this at the beginning of the show, is whenever I do breakdown videos with you or John or just by myself or whatever, my intent is not to like flame the person talking about it, whether she's male, female, whatever. It is to analyze those arguments and have a counter argument to those things. And so I'm not like tearing her apart, but what happens is when I start talking about these things, well, of course, women think that I'm, presenting some unflattering truth makes me a misogynist or evil or bad or whatever. But the fact of the matter is I'm just trying to break these things down. And in doing so, I break down the mindset of the woman that is promoting these common boilerplate. It's this common, it's what it's the right thing to say, particularly when women have money and then they get frustrated that they can't find somebody who's their equal. Well, of course you can't, because you have pushed yourself up to the point where, like, the only kind of guy that will be acceptable to a woman who makes that kind of money is going to be someone who is looking for one of two things. They can't find a guy who is a better provider, who has more resources to share those resources. That's the beta buck side of hypergamy, right? So what else is left? Well, it's the alpha seed side. She's going to start looking for the guy who's the alpha. The guy can't make as much money, but at least he's hot. At least he's fun in bed. At least he's dominant. At least he pulls my hair when we're having sex. That kind of thing, right? That's what she's looking for. So she can say, well, I fell in love with this guy who made less money than me. Yeah, because he's an alpha dog, just like the point you were trying to make in the very beginning. So it kind of like everything sort of comes full circle. But the fact of the matter is this: is that women are hypergamous. And women are always looking for somebody. They're always looking for a man who is at equal or above where they're at. And if it's equal, they're always looking for somebody who is above that. And that's simple biological evolutionary pragmatism. You want something better than what you can possibly merit yourself, right? Because that's a better than exchange than an equal exchange. A lateral exchange keeps everything homogenous and stagnant and androgynous. And it's you always got to strive for something better, because if you're not looking for something better, then you're not going to be prepared to adapt to changes that come in the environment later on. So I know that's me getting biological here, but that's really the crux of the whole argument when she's like, oh, I just love, what if you find a guy? Like, for guys, it's okay. For guys, because guys, we care about breeding. We care about youth and fertility. We care about the incubator of the next generation. So if a woman is a barista or she's making your sandwich at Subway, if she's hot, it doesn't matter that she makes less than you. In fact, that's an advantage, if anything, that she may. But when you flip the script, it's not the same. And the reason why she even has this in her head right now is because she believes in blank slate equalism. She thinks, well, we're all the same. It doesn't matter, right? And we're just, it's what's on the inside that counts. No, it's not. And I can prove to you in a million different ways how it's not. So anyways, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, I was gonna say also, like, with that, you see it in the romance comedies, right? Where there's this genre where it's the high power woman. She's in some executive position, right? And she has a horrible dating life because she doesn't have time and she can't find the right guy. And then it's like feeding into this narrative that they want to believe that it's just, finally she finds some guy, and this guy, he rejects her at first, but then he goes through these great lengths to realize that he's actually in love with her and win her over, and then and then she's able to be this high powered woman and still have her love life. It's like
that is a female inspired fantasy, but the guy who is the target of the affection, he's always Tarzan. He's always savage. It's Beauty and the Beast, right? Belle's a strong, independent woman. She can make her own damn money and it doesn't make any difference, but she falls in love with the beast. She doesn't fall in love with the prince. She falls in love with the beast. Tarzan is raised by apes in the jungle and is just this feral animal, right? Like what would Jane, who comes from aristocracy, if you ever read Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan, she falls in love with the guy who is the beast man, the ape man, right? He's the guy that's like the savage. She's from aristocracy. It was from a good family, wants to civilize him, because if she can do that, then maybe she'll have the fantasy of being able to balance alpha seed with beta need. That's the fantasy of hypergamy, is finding and of course she's the only one on planet Earth that, because of her feminine wiles, that can tame the savage beast. And that's exactly what you're talking about here. It's kind of the same thing what she's talking about too. Well, I make my own money, so what about love? Well, yeah, you're going to fall in love, but it's going to be either one side of the hypergamous equation. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about the hypergamous equation, which is alpha seed, beta, and I don't know if I can swear on your channel. So
you can swear whenever you want. Yeah. All
right. So it's alpha flux and beta bucks. I mean, that's the way the manosphere has been talking about it for a long time. And what that is the alpha seed side of hypergamy is short-term sexual. It's breeding interests. He looks good. He has the V taper. He has the six-pack abs. He has the chiseled jawline. He looks like he would be fun in bed and will pull my hair when we're having sex. Like that's one side of hypergamy. The other side is the long-term security side, which is the beta buck side. So that's provisioning, parental investment, and long-term security. So provisioning, providing, that kind of like good dad versus CAD. CAD versus dad is how they kind of simplify it in psychological circles. But that's the equation. So when one side of the equation is imbalanced, the other side drops down, right? So if it's alpha seed, I love alpha. It's fun. The hot guy in the foam cannon party is what I always call it, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
One guy in the hot guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun on spring break. I was drunk, he was cute, and one thing led to another. That's alpha seed. Okay. Then there's the beta need side, where it's like, oh, he's a boyfriend material. He's husband material. He's the guy who's going to be he's going to read to the kids when they're young. He's the guy who's going to help them do their homework and take them to soccer practice and be there for the recitals and everything else. He's the good, dependable, dutiful guy. He's the guy with the resources, right? He's the guy who's going to share those. He's going to be generous and smile and laugh, and you could be good natured and everything. But then what happens is then one side drops, man. And so really what that is balancing the hypergamous equation. So ideally, if in an ideal sense, is you've got the guy who's just the absolute Tarzan savage, and then you've got the guy who is, it's almost like the Madonna whore complex for men, exactly. Right? But it's different now. So you've got you want the guy who's got, I want the complete package. You probably heard women will say that. I want the guy who's the complete package. And so when you've got the problem today is that women, at least perceptually, believe that they have taken care of the beta buck side of their long-term security, whether that's through the state or through a divorce or through sexual harassment or through just making money on their own, right? I mean, going to college, women go to college more than men do right now. And and we're talking to one right here. We're talking to a woman right here who makes a lot of money, and what's the first thing that comes out of her mouth? Well, it's a new day, it's a new age. No, it's not. You're still the same human female that has been, walking planet Earth since, 30,000 years ago. And you still have the same, impulses. It's just, we're just in a different context right now on a different technological base, but you're still like psychologically and biologically an endocrinologist, whatologied, you're still the same building blocks from back when we were, living in tribes and hunter-gatherer tribes. And so what happens is women say, oh, well, or perceptually they're taught from an early age that all that security side, the security protection, that was the other P, protection, provisioning, and parental investment. That's the beta buck side of hypergamy. So they think that all of that is already taken care of. And maybe it is for her, right? Maybe she makes so much money, she doesn't need to worry about those things. But then women get all upset because they can't find a guy who's their equal. And by equal, they mean a guy who makes more money, who has more than she does, who wants to share that with her and her children. So what's left? Alpha fucks. Yeah. And that's exactly why she's saying, well, what about love? Yeah. For the alpha guy you want to bang. Yeah. That guy. Yeah. That's okay. We can talk about that all day.
Well, and I think there's an element too of the guy that does, because there are some guys that have the savage and also have that are good providers, right? But those guys, because they're such unicorns, they're never going to settle down because they don't need to, because they have such a variety of options. So she's never going to capture that guy, even though that guy exists, and she's constantly trying to make her own. So because he doesn't know his value. If a man knows his value, it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you should say that. It's actually a very key chapter in my first book. It's called The Threat. And the threat is this, that there's nothing that is more threatening, simultaneously threatening to a woman as simultaneously threatening and arousing to a woman than a guy who understands his own value to women.
Exactly.
And that's a guy. Yeah. And I've talked about that before, because a lot of guys have said, well, why can't you just be the good guy, right? Instead of being the jerk or being the nice guy, just be the good guy, the guy who's this balance between the two. The problem with that is that guys, well, first of all, in this day and age, it's really hard to convince anybody of anything, because we believe in the blank slate. We believe that, oh, well, it doesn't matter what's on the outside. It's just what's on your soul and your inside and everything else, right? That's what makes you attractive. It's not. But here's the other thing is, remember what I was just saying about how women today believe, at least perceptually, and like I said, it may be true, it may not, but the perception is that the beta buck side of hypergamy, that security seeking side of hypergamy, is already accomplished, or it's already pretty much accounted for. So they feel safe in looking for the guy who's the hottest fucks that they can get. Right. Well, the problem is that when you have generation after generation, and at least the last 3 to 4 generations of women, when they believe that, they don't look for a guy who is good provider guy or alpha guy. They don't look for the combination of the two. In fact, they don't even believe it exists now, because they're too preoccupied looking for either alpha seed Chad in the foam cannon party, or good dad parental, make him jump through the hoops kind of guy, the guy who's going to be dutiful and the guy who completes that side of hypergamy. They don't even believe that combination exists. And if it does exist, they won't be the right girl at the right time when that guy comes along. Because when women get to be 22, 23, 24, when they hit their peak sexual market value years, which I think she's just a little bit past, when they hit those years, they're not looking for alpha. They're not looking for beta provider guy. They're not looking for good dad. They're not looking for protector, provider, parentally invested guy. They're looking for hot sex in the foam cannon party. That's what and why wouldn't they? Because most women realize that their only agency in this life is their sexuality. And so when they are at their peak levels, why would they sell out? I just saw just before we came on, I was reading this story about how, I don't know if you're familiar with Bella Thorne. She was an actress for Disney or something like that, and she's in her 20s right now. She just started an OnlyFans account. She made $1 million in less than 24 hours.
Oh, wow. That's insane.
$1 million. And you know why? Because she's a hot piece of ass, and I think she's right about 24, 25 years old right now. Why on planet Earth would she go and look for a guy who is the good provider guy? She wants the guy who can pull her hair when they're having sex, right? She wants a guy who is going to dominate her in the bedroom, because there's no way that the average guy that she would get with is going to make $1 million in 24 hours unless he's like Warren Buffett, and she doesn't want to fuck that guy anyways. So when at different times of a woman's maturity, and this is why I wrote book 2, which is Preventive Medicine, and in there, I don't know if you've read book 2, but they're in that book is based on a timeline of what men can expect from women at different phases of their maturity. So when a woman is at her peak sexual market value years, she has no incentive and no impetus to look for the good guy until the party's over, until she gets to what I call the epiphany phase, 29 to 31 years old. And that's when they start looking for the guy who is the good provider, the guy who's going to read the homework to the kids and all that other good stuff. So when we talk about, like we were saying before, the good guy, the guy who's the mesh of both alpha fucks and beta bucks, and he's going to be, and I'm not saying they don't exist. They do. It's just the problem is women don't believe those guys. They don't believe that they're actually genuine. And then second of all, they're not looking for that guy at different times of their lives. So like I said, at the peak sexual market value years, 22, 23, 24, they're looking for alpha fucks. When they get to their epiphany phase, 29, 30, 31, they're looking for beta bucks. And so those guys, it doesn't matter that if there is a great guy who's the complete package, he's the wrong guy at the wrong time. So that's what, and you'll probably hear here when she's talking, she'll be frustrated with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right now, because she believes she's got her beta buck side of hypergamy already accounted for, that will end up being very frustrating for women once they get into their 30s.
Well, yeah, and I think she denies it a little bit. I guess we'll get rolling here in a second, but I think this was kind of an interesting comment. He said, Lone Ranger said, "What if you fall in love with a poor guy though? A top trader once gave an example where he asked his wife if she would still love him if he wasn't rich. Her answer was, 'Yes, I will, but I'll miss you.'" And I think that was kind of interesting because, like when you're talking about love, it's I think that the answer there is really because a woman who's high powered and is able to provide for herself can fall in love with another guy who doesn't have the resources, who isn't her superior in that sense, but the way that women love versus men love is so different that it's a completely different thing that we're looking at, as opposed to the way that I think most men think about love being like, because the manly love is actually more loyal and more unconditional.
Men are innately idealists. Women are innately opportunists. If you've ever read anything, or actually I can show you the videos, I think there's a TED talk from Dr. Steven Pinker where he talks about biological and gendered differences between men and women. Psychologically, it's what I call evolvmental firmware. Men tend to be more interested in things. Women tend to be more interested in people. And when you look at their career choices for men, it's almost all, men focus outward, women tend to focus inward when they're, because like I always say, women are solipsistic. We can talk about that anytime, but it's on the topic of love here. Men tend to apply that idealism to love, whereas women apply opportunism to love. And women lose their minds whenever I use the term opportunistic, right? And I'm using that in the most clinical sense I can. I know there's negative, they conflate it negatively because, what do you mean we're opportunistic? You are opportunistic. You're opportunistic in the sense that if a man does not meet your hypergamous criteria, you will not make an emotional investment in that guy. Women will not allow themselves to make an emotional investment in a guy who doesn't, at least in some way, knock off some of those check boxes, what Royce has called the 436 bullet point checklist for women, right? The things that you got to have, at least these things, right? There might be a ton of them, but as long as you knock off the first 4 or 6, somewhere around there, you're in there, right? I'll invest myself emotionally. I'll fall in love with you, whatever. Like the guy was joking about, like, what if I was a poor guy? Well, I'd still love you, but I wouldn't be with you, because women's love is based on opportunism. It has to be. That's the hypergamous equation. We've got to find a better than merited matching. Right, the guy has to be, and guys get pissed off when I say this too, because I have another post. It's not in any book, but it's called SMV ratios and attachment theory. what that means is that if a guy is 1 point above his wife or his girlfriend in SMV, you can say, well, it's HB10 or what, 1 to 10 scale. I don't care how you do it. But like if a guy is perceptually, doesn't have to actually be that way, but if he's perceptually 1 step above her or 2 steps above her, that solidifies a strong attachment for that woman. So if the woman believes I can't get any better than this guy, and it doesn't have to be actual, it can be just, she just like, well, she has low self-esteem. Yeah, well, if that's the case, if she believes that we can say, what is she doing with this schmuck, right? That's why we say that, because she perceptually believes that he's 1 step above her in sexual market value. That creates a very strong attachment for that woman. As soon as that slips, as soon as that guy drops down to like even parallel, even with her, like let's just say they're both 6s, right? That's when the doubt comes in. That's hypergamy is based on doubt. It's based on and that doubt asks one question: is he the best I can do?
Right.
And that's as long as you're 1 step above, you're the best that she can do.
And that's why a lot of guys, like it's interesting. I find in kind of, the kind of red pill rage, the anger, a lot of guys, that have been divorce raped and all these things. It's a lot of it is actually kind of their fault, right? Not to, I mean, some of these things obviously, but a lot of the times it's because they didn't realize that they have to keep on improving themselves and keep on running on that treadmill. As soon as you put those gloves down, there's no point. I think a lot of guys don't understand. There's no point where you can be so good and you could have done so much that you've earned a woman's unconditional love. You're constantly reevaluated every single day to see if you're still meeting the criteria, if you're still that. And and a lot of guys, I think they view this as a negative thing, but I don't. I think it is as a positive thing, because it's what keeps you being a man and on your feet and improving yourself. It's almost like an aid to your own development, because you have to know that you have to constantly be, that's what it means to be a man, is to constantly be running that race. And as soon as you try to like say, okay, I'm going to take a breather here, well, you're going to get dropped like a pile of rocks, because that's how women act. And it's not like a malicious thing. It's just within their nature. And if you understand that as a man, I think then in a long-term relationship, you can survive. Whereas, so many guys are so jaded. They're like, oh, it doesn't work out, never get married, never get into an LTR. And it's like, no, you can do it, but you have to be the man who understands that you're constantly going to need to be proving yourself, and you're constantly going to need to be working on yourself and being that guy and sustaining that level, because as soon as it drops, you're dropped.
So what most guys do, and I know you've locked horns with the guys in the MGTOW community, so I'll just throw this out here anyway.
Yeah.
All bets are off the table anyways. But no, I think one of the things is that when I was talking about how men love idealistically and when women love opportunistically, that's what you're just talking about right now, is sort of the balance between that. So when guys, a lot of guys say this, I'm not interested in unconditional love. I know I have to do what I have to do. Like, yeah, I understand that most guys, like most guys who rational males, right? Guys who are somewhat intelligent, who aren't like completely sold on the blue pill, they don't believe in unconditional love. They know that they have a burden of performance in some way. What they are saying, what and particularly MGTOWs will say, well, if you're doing it for a woman, then it's the wrong way of doing it. And it's like, well, you can look at it that way, but whether you look at it as you're doing it for yourself, or you're doing it because you want to get laid, or you're doing it because because you have been shamed by women or whatever, the burden of performance doesn't change no matter what your perception of the burden of performance is. Exactly. Right. So what guys will say to you is they'll go, well, I don't want to, I'm just going to give up on the game. Fuck this. I'm out. I don't want to deal with that. I was just telling you a second ago, you can't relax. You always have to be progressing. You always have to be going forward. You always have to be better than the day that you were yesterday. And it's not that we don't have our down days. We do. Most guys don't believe in unconditional love. And that's actually a good thing. I'm glad they don't. Some do. But and the reason for that is, but most guys believe this, though. The blue pill teaches guys that the burden of performance shouldn't matter.
Right. Exactly.
It's not that they believe in unconditional love. Obviously, if I went out and it became an axe murderer, my wife would probably leave me, and rightfully so. Okay, right. I hope so. Okay, maybe she's a ride or die girl, but I would hope that she would leave me if I turned into some alcoholic, homeless bum who killed people with an axe. Okay.
Right.
Okay. There are conditions for love and for pretty much everything else. I get that. You can go and take it to those extremes. But the thing is this is it's not about unconditional or conditional love, a belief in it. It's about a belief that your burden of performance shouldn't matter. Because and she actually says this too. Actually, it's in what she was just talking about, where it's like, well, what if you fall in love with a guy who's poor? Well, what that means is that he's not measuring up to his burden of performance. You're going to forgive him of that because you want to fuck him in the foam cannon party, but the thing is men have competence hierarchies as well as dominance hierarchies. That guy is less competent than she is. Right. If she's not looking for competence at that time, then it doesn't matter. But if she is, it matters a whole lot, because that's what her opportunistic side of love is all about. But it goes back to the burden of performance. So men have to become, women just are.
Exactly.
So women can become hotter. They can go and keep themselves up and everything. I'm not saying that, but by and large, the way that women judge men is by what they have achieved for themselves. What have they built themselves into? Are they motivated? Are they I've said this before about 1 million times, is that the key to a healthy relationship is polarity. It's you staying on point. Women should only ever be a complement to a man's life and never the focus of it. And as soon as that woman becomes the focus of it, she's gone. Exactly. And that's really where what it comes back to. So when guys say, well, it's unconditional love, it's you. And it's not just this generation. This is the boomer generation. Oh, right after the sexual revolution and the free love movement. That's what free love was about. Oh, I don't have to be anything anymore. She's going to love me for who I am. Right, women never love men for who they are. They love them for what they are. And then maybe they love them for who they are. But it starts with what you are. And then it progresses from there. Like I said before, women will not make an emotional investment in a guy unless he checks off some of those boxes. And you know where those boxes are determined by? Your burden of performance.
Exactly. Yep. 100% agree. So we've got a super chat from Christopher Wilson, 125 PHP. He says, at the end, she said that men are more depressed than women. I'm pretty sure that is verifiably false. Hope Rollo can confirm that. I think it's actually verifiably true.
Well, I could say that men are not more depressed than women. Women are prescribed SSRIs at rates that, like, I can prove that to you in 1 5-second Google search. Women are prescribed antidepressants way more than men are.
I agree, but what about the high male suicide rate? Do you think that? How does that play into it?
Okay, so let's look at the high. We really should get back to the video.
We should get back to. Okay,
I'll explain to you the high suicide rate. Men.
Thanks, Hoppy, by the way. Yeah.
Men kill themselves at a rate between 3 to 5, depending on whose stats you're looking at. Globally, I think it's like 3 or 4 times, but like in the United States, 5 times the amount of men successfully kill themselves than women do. And that you have to look at this in demographics too, because that demographic is, there's young men that are doing that. There's I think there's an 18 to 22 demo that is pretty high, but from 22 on up to about 45, it declines. When you get to 45 to 60 to 65, that's where it shoots through the freaking roof. That's where that 5 times number comes from, is usually in that demographic of those guys. And they're also called suicides of despair. And so it's not that they're necessarily depressed or they didn't have a great life. It's that they become zeroed out. And I've written at least 4 different essays about being zeroed out and reconstructing yourself. That was what prompted those, was the high suicide rate that I was trying to get. And if you know anything about me, the reason why I do what I do is because my brother-in-law ended up committing suicide. So because of a divorce and because he got zeroed out and because he believed in blue pill stuff. So that's why I got into doing what I do. But suicide it doesn't necessarily have to be like a continual depression. Women will live with depression and medicate accordingly. Men will simply kill themselves. So when we talk about who's happier and who's sadder, well, the men who are killing themselves between the ages of 45 and 65 years old, we don't count them. They're dead.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're not counting those guys. So that kind of ruins the balance there for you. But if we're going to look at things in terms of happiness versus like clinically prescribed depression, women are clinically described as being depressive more than men are, and they are prescribed more SSRIs, which are antidepressants, like whatever. Zoloft, I don't know, whatever the hell it is these days, but they're prescribed those medications, antidepressants, in numbers that are like way more than men. And I don't have them off a hand, but you can easily go find those on Google.
Okay. Let's see. Nao, $10, just stopping by. Say hello, Professor Rollo and Mr. Bulldog. Keep up that edutainment, sir. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll let's jump back into the video here. And just let me know when we get to a point you want to stop it.
I'll try to let her go a little further this time. I know we're going to be here for like 4 hours if we do this.
I think we're going to hit a little monologue that she has, so we might forward through it, but we'll see.
Dr. Tom, I am here with John, and we are going to be talking about a recent video that Tommy Lauren put out. And I just want to say that there are a lot of things. I'm not really a big supporter of her. Her videos are extremely controversial. But this particular video really gets my blood boiling because she really comes at men hard. And I don't think men, I mean, at least the men I've met, I don't think that they really have that bad of a rap. Like, I have only met wonderful men, and maybe I'm extremely blessed, but my boyfriends have never really hurt me that bad in the past, maybe when I was young, but I've been lucky enough to have really great men in my life. And so, John, I'm really interested, like, do you feel like she was right in that video? Do you feel that way?
In some ways, yes. And in some ways, no, right? So in general, right, like, I did a video and I basically talked about like the top 5% of men, right? And that's what she's really going after, and that's who she's really complaining about. And so it's like, if you're going after the top 5% of men, and maybe even in her case, it might be like more like the top 2 or 3%, to be honest, then you should expect the kind of behaviors that she's complaining about. And what's interesting about it though, so in that way she's accurate, right? But the issue is that women in general tend to act very similar in the way that she's complaining that men act, whereas the kind of bottom 95% of men, they're watching her video and they're getting really pissed off because they're like, hey, I'm not like that at all. I'm the typical nice guy. I'll text you back. I'll make plans. Well, why are you saying all these things? They're not true. And I think it's just a difference of perspective, not understanding that these are the behaviors that maybe the top 5% of men are going to do, and why they're doing it, as opposed to just men in general. So
sure. Well, I definitely believe that it's not just men who act like this. I'm friends with a lot of males, and they always tell me like the girls are for the streets nowadays, and I don't even know what that
Wonder
means,
where she got that from.
I get it.
I know where you got that reference.
I'm just like, okay, men are feeling this hurt, I think, in the same way that women are too. Like, I think it just has to do with us having this false idea that someone is going to be what they are and what we want them to be forever. The most certain thing in this world is that people will change. And if you are looking for someone to fulfill something for you, to be something for you, you bet your ass that they are going to change and they are not going to be that person forever. And I think that people in our society is taught to believe that we're supposed to find this person and they're supposed to complete us and make us whole. But that is a false sense of security that we are living on, that everyone is living on, which is why we're so crazy. Why can't I find the perfect man? Why can't I find this? And the truth is that doesn't exist, and it never will. And even if you think you found it, there's no guarantee that it will be there forever.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, the focus has to be, well, and one of the things I teach men especially is that you have to focus on your purpose in life, your mission in life. And a lot of men want to put women first and put a woman in their life as the center of their life. And when they do that, that's when it's hold
it there just real quick.
Okay, yeah.
All right, because this is another trope that gets thrown out by women all the time, is that and this is very Oprah, this is very Dr. Phil, okay? And it's what they say is like, oh, you're looking for someone to complete you. No, it depends on the time, depends on where you're at, and depends on the person, more or less. But I would say this is that you're looking for the right person at the right time most of the time. And usually if you're like, when she's talking about like, oh, look at me, like,
yeah,
when John from Modern Life Dating was doing this, it was like, I said, John, is this like a video dating profile for her? Because that's pretty much how she treats well, let me tell you as a woman, like you're speaking for all women. Okay. But, when a woman says, well, you're looking for somebody just to complete you. Okay, what that does is it promotes what I've said, and I'm going to focus on women on this side. I'm not saying this doesn't happen with men as well, but it's easier to point out in her case is that when women are saying that, what they're saying is that the ideal state for a human being is to be an strong, independent woman, right? Who's self-satisfying, self-fulfilling, autonomous thing, right? That is the best of both masculine and feminine, that can do everything, that has no need for anything outside of itself. Remember, I'm talking about like this is the ideal state of humanity is I don't need you. I'm a man. I don't need women. I'm a woman. You don't need men, right? Like we've heard this since like the early 70s from like Gloria Steinem and the early feminists. What is it? A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, right? And you will hear, and like I said before, you will hear MGTOW say the same thing. I don't need no woman. That's really what it's based on, right? No women for me unless they want to come and play my game, and then I'll bang them. But I'm no marriage, no this, no kids, no nothing, no attachments, no anything. Really what that is, what I see this is that, and I'm not saying all MGTOWs are like this. I know that there's a spectrum, right? I know that there's a degree of like, guys who are banging dolls, and then the guys who are just like, the go along to get along kind of guy who's have girlfriends and everything else. But the fundamental principle, the only unique underlying principle for MGTOW that I have been able, and I'm not shitting on MGTOWs, okay, is all of them, from the doll fuckers all the way up to the guys who are just like doing their own thing. Every last one of those guys has this one principle, and it is that they don't make women the metric of their lives. Remember what I said about a woman should only ever be a complement to a man's life and never the focus of it. You can take that. It's not that you don't need women. It's just that you need to maintain polarity. You need to be on your point, because men and women are different. Men need to be performing. Men need to be building. Men need to be creating. Men need to be better than they were the day before. That's what men do. Women, on the other hand, men must become. Women just are. So when I hear MGTOWs talk about like I don't need any woman ever again, screw it, I'm just not going to play the game anymore. That sounds a lot like, to me, anyways, like a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle.
Exactly.
So what you have is two autonomous things that we don't need each other. Fuck you. You don't, though. We don't need each other until we want to have sex, have a kid, and then we go back to our side of the playground, right? And that is no way to build a society. I keep saying men and women do need each other, and we are better together than we are apart. The problem is that we believe that we ought to be self-contained, autonomous things based on the blank slate, the idea of the blank slate, that it doesn't matter what we are, right? We're all the same. Oh, you've got a penis, I've got a vagina. It doesn't make any difference. We can have kids, but that's it. We're all the same. No, we're not. We're different. And that what she's doing here is perpetuating the idea that there are no differences, and if there are no differences, then we've taught women this more effectively, I think, than men, because we've been doing this for the last almost 50 years with feminism, is we've taught women that they can be independent, strong. Exactly. And I did a show where we did Rule Zero. We did this on last Saturday. We talked about this. This was the topic. What does strong, and I would love to ask her this. What is a strong independent woman? What is strength? What is strong? And what is independent? Because I can answer the independent part, which is independent of men. I don't need men. Like she was just saying, I make my own money. What if I fall in love with a guy who makes less money than I do? You probably will, but you'll be falling in love with him for a different set of criteria than you would for a guy who's making more money. And so you still need him. You need the guy that you fall in love with who is hot and fun, but he's a barista. Yeah, that guy. But I love him. Yeah, you love him for different reasons than you would love the other guy who makes more money than you, who is economically attractive. But you still need both of those guys to some capacity. So to say, well, we should all be these, these independent things, or like, I'm going to be a woman, I'm going to be a careerist woman. No woman really wants to be a careerist. Let's just say that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's true.
Biologically, neurologically, psychologically, no woman wants to be. Every woman is looking for a bigger and better deal. That's the premise of hypergamy. That's why only women are hypergamous. Men, we're are selected, man. No one's ugly after 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Guys will go slump bust. Maybe not you, maybe not me, but there's a lot of guys that will go.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Hunting, right? I mean, when it's a biological function because we are different than women are. But what she was saying here, and I think it's important to point out, is that this is the standard boilerplate of I should be independent, you should be independent, and we shouldn't need each other. We should just want each other. There's no such thing as want. Men need women, women need men. And as soon as we figure that out, it's how we balance that is what's all screwed up right now. It's not that we don't need each other. We do. We absolutely do. We're complements to one another. My strengths complement my wife's weaknesses, and vice versa. That's how we are. I can show you this in fMRI studies for the way that men's brain architecture is. It's a biological fact. That if you take the two of them, you take women's brain scans, you put men's brain scans, you lay them on top of each other, they look damn complementary. Like the way that the synapses are arranged. Again, men are interested in things, women interested in people. Wow, wouldn't that be great if we could just come together and have this symbiotic relationship like we've been having for 100,000 freaking years? Wow, that'd be great. But no, you're independent, you're a thing, you're autonomous, you're an island, nothing affects you. You don't need men and men don't need you. You want to know why we have low fertility rates? That's why.
That's why. Yeah. And it's interesting, like what you said here also, because I did a video that really stirred up some people when I said that MGTOW are male feminists. And it's exactly the reason why I said it was exactly what you're saying. It's both the victim mindset and it's the anti, like MGTOW are like the antimatter, a lot of them of feminists, because they're, feminists are hating men and blaming men for society, and then a lot of MGTOW, again, not all, like you said, there is a spectrum, but a lot of the guys that are that I am hearing that are complaining, and the ones I'm complaining against are basically just like feminists. Mm-hmm. And then also to speak to what you said about about men and women needing each other, I think that's very important, because one of the greatest factors that I think you'll find, like in relationships, on whether they're gonna break up, or like divorces and the breakups of relationships, is the sex life. And the sex life is completely determined by polarity, and polarity is completely determined by the differences, because it's very rare to have someone who has a breakup, a marriage dissolve, where the sex life is really good. And the reason why the sex life disappears is because that lack of polarity, and that lack of, like, if you are blank slates and it's just I have a penis, you have a vagina, you're going to have no polarity. There's going to be none of that.
Yeah,
and so, maybe
you may as well be androgynous.
Exactly.
May as well be, and that's what we try to teach. When I wrote about this in book 3 when I was writing about red pill parenting. Is the biggest problem I see with the strong independent woman meme that's been around, like I said, since the early 70s. The problem with that is it teaches generation after generation of women to go it alone, that they don't need a man. And then what happens is, because they go it alone, because they believe that they can be the best of both the masculine and the feminine, they end up fucking up both. Yeah. Because you don't have the guy. Men have, what we've done is systematically disempower men with respect to authority. They still have 100% responsibility, but they have 0% authority, particularly in the family, particularly in marriages right now. Which I completely understand why MGTOWs feel the way they do. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. I would want to opt out. It's what's called an unconscionable contract. Meaning that if you knew everything, all the details about that contract, there is no way any sane person would enter into it. So I'm not, like, people say, are you anti-marriage? You were married for 24 years. I'm very much pro-marriage. I'm just anti-marriage the way we do it now.
Exactly.
I think marriage is a great institution. It has been something that has been sort of the bedrock and the foundation of Western society for a long time, but we fucked it up. We fucked it up back in back in 1965 with the sexual revolution and no-fault divorce and child support laws and the Duluth model of feminism and abortion laws and marriage alimony laws. And we want old order benefits. What women do, want old order benefits based on a social environment Like that, like alimony made a lot of sense in the 1930s during Depression era of the United States. It was I would 100% vote for alimony back in Depression era United States. It is, but we're still saying, oh, that's the same thing that's happening to women right now. No, and we're never going to. You're never going to change alimony. You're never going to change abortion. You're never going to change any of these laws, these gynocentric laws. You will never change them as long as women have the right to vote, which is what MGTOWs will always say. But even now, we'll look back and we still want those old women and men to a great degree, want those old order benefits in a new order that is completely disadvantageous to men. In fact, that's the whole thing. That's the whole premise of feminism, is that men need to be disadvantaged to, in some way, like, recompensate and reconciliation and restitution and that kind of stuff, right? For like this, years and years of slavery, like we've been led around in chains until now, right? And so they want those old order benefits in the new order because the new order benefits them, and that old order, like old order thinking benefits women as well. So yeah, if you were a guy, there's no way, like people get like tradcons jump all up my ass because they're like, how can you be so anti-marriage when you've been married for 24 years and you have a great marriage? And don't you want other guys to have that? I go, yeah, I would love for them to have that, but I can't endorse it right now because it's an unconscionable contract. I would never want guys to get involved in that kind of stuff because the risks are too great, and not just the financial risks, the personal risks, the family risks, the birth fraud risks. There's so many things that go along with that we don't really take into consideration, but we want to pretend and we want to think that marriage is a great thing, and it is a great thing the way we used to do it. Not now, exactly. Not how we do it. It's a racket now, and literally a racket in the legal system. From the time you get on one knee, or I shouldn't even say that. So from the time you go and you buy the ring from Zales, you've entered into the marriage divorce industry. So you go, okay, I like that ring. I'm going to get on my knee and give her the ring. Oh, in the Jumbotron at the hockey game or whatever, I'm going to give her. And so from that point on, you've entered into that machine, and it's either you make it work or you don't make it work because you believe in an old order ideal, because men are more idealistic than women are. You believe in that ideal and you believe you're going to be the exception to the rule. You get into that. Then when you get it, I don't know if you've ever seen this. There's a great documentary. It's called Divorce Incorporated. I think it came out in like 2013, 2014. Dr. Drew Pinsky, actually, Dr. Drew is. He was a guy that was one of the producers of it. He's actually the narrator of it as well. And it describes all of the financial, liabilities and things that go on in the divorce industry. And he interviews some of these divorce attorneys who will say it's in our best interests to make the woman and the man fight, because the longer they fight, that's more billable hours, man. Yeah. And there's so many add-ons. It's a hustle is what it is. Divorce has entered into the hustle economy. So is that something that I can get behind and say, yeah, guys, go for it. You're going to be the exception to the rule. I'm not going to say that. So that's why I'm anti-marriage, but I'm pro-marriage at the same time. I wish there was something better. I wish I had a better answer for you. I don't. So but again, all of this stuff comes back to one thing, which is that we believe that we are these autonomous, self-fulfilling things with no need for anything outside of ourselves. And I think that is we're social animals. You want to know why you're so fucked up right now? Because we're doing this, like you and I are doing this. Like, well, I'm here in my studio right now and you're there. And we pretend that it's this great extroversion when in fact, I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to go and pet my dog or something. You got to go back at some point. You got to unplug yourself from the matrix. But we become more atomized and we become more isolated right now. And I think part of that is this idea that we don't need each other. And we do need each other. It's not that we want each other. We want to. We don't need you. We want you. Oh, well, thank you for your magnanimity, right? Thank you for stepping off your freaking horse to come down and mingle with the commoners. That's where I get when women say, I want men. I don't. Yeah, you want men. You want the guys you want to fuck in a foam cannon party. That's what you want. Right. Until you need a guy who makes more money than you, that kind of stuff. But again, I think that the blank slate really leads women like this woman here to believe in this idea that I'm me, you're you, and there's never this, right? It's always this. That's the best way I can illustrate.
No, I agree. I agree 100%.
All right,
All right, let me,
continue. I want to get through this at least.
okay. I might skip around a little bit here in a
Fine.
second when we get, because I do want to make sure we get to some of the good parts too, because there was some, let me see here. We'll see what she says here.
The center of her life, of his life, and you're not gonna be happy as a man, and you like a lot of what you're describing where guys snap and go crazy and whatnot. It's because they're like suppressing all these things because they're being this nice guy. They're trying to be very amicable to everyone instead of actually being a little bit more selfish, which is what was actually going to produce a genuineness in a person. Like it's funny. I was just talking to someone the other day and they were complaining about narcissists. And I actually said, I only trust narcissists. I don't trust anyone who's not a narcissist. And I know it's, it's kind of has a negative connotation, but the reason why I say that is because you can only really trust someone who is to some degree selfish, because then when someone has a high value of themselves and has kind of a selfish tendency, then when they're actually doing something for you, it's genuine and authentic and not necessarily something they're doing out of compulsion. So
yes, I agree. And I'm glad that you actually brought up the term high value person, because I feel like a lot of people nowadays use that in a completely wrong context. And they, when I hear millennials especially, or like younger people looking for love, and they say, I want a high value girl, I want a high value man. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? You want a good person? Like, you want a decent person? Like, what are you equating to a high value person? The job that they have, the car that they have, maybe they're a nice guy, maybe they're nice looking, all of these things. And when you speak about being a high value person, it's someone who values themselves. And that is really the most important thing, is that finding the one, I think, is not luck. You're not lucky, I found the one I love. I think it's when two people have worked on themselves enough, they're mature enough to know.
Hold it right there, young lady. She uses the one. Okay?
Yes.
Whenever I hear that from man or female, I know exactly what I'm dealing with. So what that says to me is that she's looking for the soulmate, and there's such thing as a soulmate.
What they want.
Oops. Okay.
So when she's like, oh, the men and women looking for love. Well, oh, good. Okay. I'm not saying, I'm not going to shit on love or anything like that, but not, at least not in this show. But when anyone uses, well, when they're looking for the one, if that is something that sort of comes out in your natural flow of conversation, that says to me that you believe in the soulmate myth. And
exactly,
the very first chapter in my first book, which is There Is No One. Okay. There are some good ones and there are some bad ones, but there is no one. So what the one is, the myth of the one is I don't think there's any story that sums up the romantic ideal better than the idea that there's only one person for you out there. And if you lose that person, you're screwed. What the one does, what the soulmate myth does, particularly to guys these days, it used to be women, but now because we've feminized guys, I think it's affecting guys more, is that it promotes this idea of scarcity. And it fits very well into the blue pill conditioning, but very well into men's sense of scarcity. Now, I've said this before, and I think I've maybe mentioned it to you, is that 80%, 85% of guys tend to be low value men. I can show you that statistically, how, like it was in Dataclism or Gendernomics, how women rate 80 to 85% of men as unattractive, not average.
Right.
Unattractive. Like, I would not want to make babies with this guy. Ultimately, that's what it is. And that's usually based on, dating profiles, dating, pictures and those kinds of things. We're very visual now. Okay. Because that's all we have to go on the internet these days. And I know that's John's thing, online dating, and that's cool. I know that's how we do things, but I've always said that, you need to talk to somebody face to face. And that's what I think a lot of guys fear, that sort of buffer. But anyways, 85% of guys are low SMV men. They're the guys who get selected out. Again, I can show you statistics where women will select for the top 20% of guys. So people, and let me clarify this really quickly too, because a lot of guys really misinterpret this, and I think deliberately so. They think that 80% of guys, or 20% of guys are banging 80% of women, or 80% of women are only interested in 20% of guys. I'm like, no, 100% of women are interested in the top 20% of guys. That's how hypergamy has worked since we were in our ancestral past on the savannas of sub-Saharan Africa.
It's just a matter of what they'll accept if they can't get that, right? It's like, and that is based on their value. So it's like
hypergamy is not a straitjacket, and it changes. The priorities for hypergamy change as a woman's conditions and needs change. But hypergamy doesn't go away. It's always there. It's just contextualized. So there's no, oh, she's more hypergamous than she is. No, they're all the same. It's just that one can affect that hypergamy better than the other one. A more beautiful woman can affect that a whole lot better than a woman who's like a 6 or a 7 who has to work at it. So there's conditions and there's variables in that. But for those guys, for the 80% of guys, and I think it's more in your face these days because of the internet, because of the red pill for sure, but because we have access to information, like instant access to statistics and information and articles, and for better or worse, right? Guys see this and they go, I'm in the 80%, I'm screwed. Now, prior to all of that, it was 80% of guys believed in the soulmate myth themselves. And I described this little story that I taught. It's in the very first, and I'll paraphrase it here. In the very beginning of my book, when I'm talking about that in the fallacy of the one, or the myth of the one, I was once in a university class, and I was in a psychology class, and I had one of the teachers ask the whole class, like, who believes in God? And like, there's a lot of atheists, let's just say, in the class. Now, then she says, how many guys believe that how many people believe that there is one special person for them out there somewhere, right? The one, that you're going to find the one. Every damn hand shot up. Every single one shot up. And
that would require God.
Well, I looked at that and I was like, so you're telling me that a belief in God, because it's complete spiritual fantasy.
Exactly. That's why I said that.
To have a soulmate, you would have to believe in a soul, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
So I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, so all you guys, usually I was older when I was finishing my college days, but I'm looking at all this and I'm going, these are like supposed to be like rational, reasonable college students, right? Going to educate themselves to be better people, right? I'm looking at this and I'm going, so you don't believe in God, but you do believe in the fantasy that there's one single person out there in the universe that's going to be your soul connection to whatever, that's going to fulfill you. What was she saying before? That there's going to be some fulfillment. Like all these guys are looking for, she just said that, right? Just 2 seconds ago, she was like, they're looking for the one that completes them. But yet she just in the next breath says, oh, well, we're all looking for the one kind of thing, right? I'm like, well, what is it? Are you going to criticize the fact that you should be this one, this independent person? Then why are you looking for the one? If you're already self-fulfilled, why would you be looking for that soulmate? So just to finish the thought here is that the guys who believe in, like, men, I'm talking to men right now, the guys who believe in the soulmate myth, it's very seductive for them, particularly if they don't get laid, if they're kind of losers in the sexual marketplace.
It's a good explanation for what's happening.
Right. Yeah. So what happens, and it becomes very dangerous for men. That's one of the reasons I made it the first chapter in the book, because I thought if anybody like reads one chapter and they throw the book away, that's the one I want them to read. Yeah. Because that's where you get suicide, right? That's what we were just talking about a minute ago, like the depression and all that other stuff. You get that if you believe you can't live without her. Right?
I was just
she's the only one, right? Well, I can't live without her, she completes me. Well, you pull that away and she walks off and goes bangs a hot guy in the foam cannon party. Yep. You might kill yourself.
I was just on a phone call with the guy that had emailed me, and he was like, my wife I just found out she just cheated on me with the neighbors 5 doors down, and I'm ready to kill them both. I'm like, he's like, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't, right? And so I'm like, hey, call me. Right. So we get on the phone, and he's telling me about, it's the thing I've heard 1,000 times from men about. He's walking on eggshells. She's, basically abusing him, mentally and treating him like shit. And it's because he doesn't have any boundaries. He doesn't have any standards. He's telling me all this horrible stuff, and that, this guy that she knew, and he caught them. And then after all of that, you know what he says? He says, and I know I've been doing the wrong thing, but I've been looking up videos on how to win her back. And it's
the prize. How do I win her back?
But it's because he believes in the soul, because like the only reason why a man would do that is because he thinks I cannot lose this one because she was the one for me, and so I have to make this work. And so this is why, like, I'm in total agreement with you. So many guys wreck their whole fucking life because they either believe that they're going to find the one, and so they don't actually develop the skills as a man to go out there and find the many, which will help them to find one if they want one later, or they find the one which happens to be the first girl that will fuck them in their life, and then they stick with her, and they assume that they have to go through whatever kind of fucking glass that she drags them through because she's the one and there's no one else, and so they put up with all kinds of horrible life conditions and never improve.
It's a dangerous mindset for guys, particularly who are sort of this blue pill guys, right? You want to like, and I hate to, I don't want to criticize incels because I actually have some sympathy for incels. Mm-hmm. And I have that because they get into the same, addictive, like negative feedback loop that guys do with respect. And again, this comes back to guys like being idealists, innate idealists. But I was reading, somebody sent me this, I think it was a Reddit post, or maybe it was 4chan or something like that. And the guy was describing about how he would go to OnlyFans and spend like like half of his paycheck or whatever, like $4,000 to get this girl to sort of like pay attention to him.
Yeah.
Bella Thorne, right? She's a millionaire, right? This is a profit model for women right now because men are, we say, oh, they're just desperate loser men. No, they're following their idealistic nature. Mm-hmm. And yes, are they losers? Sure, they are. But they also have that idealistic nature that gets them into that negative feedback loop. So what the guy was talking about is like, what I do is I go and I pay a small fortune so she'll pay attention to me, so she thinks that I'm special, and then she, asks me how my day was, blah blah blah. And then somebody else comes along and takes away that attention. I get mad, I get jealous, and it's like they have this like whole kind of like virtual relationship with her. He pulls away his funds, takes all his money, and goes and he cries and jerks off. That's just what he says. And then he goes and he starts the whole cycle all over again because they believe in this idea that there's this special someone. And if I have to pay $4,000 a month for it, so she'll just sort of like wink at me on, so what is it? There's Bella Thorne and then there's Belle Delphine, right? She'll smile at me because she looks like the anime girl I see in all the hentai videos, right? That's my special girl. That's my one. That's my waifu, right? That's my hug pillow. That's my sex doll. That's my whatever. Yeah. There's still that desire for that connection. That's why I say there's no such thing as an incel. Because if it was about sex, you can come on down to Nevada and I'll get you laid.
Yeah, exactly.
Come to Nevada with $300 in your pocket. I will guarantee you will have sex. Yeah. It's not about sex. It's about that connection that they believe, because that's, I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but there's a principle here. Like for men's sexual strategy is usually unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. That's why pornography is a big deal, because it satisfies unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. Why do guys get addicted to jerking off and pornography? Because that's your innate biological evolved mating strategy. Men can potentially impregnate thousands of women with one ejaculation. We are selected, right? We spread the seed. That's what we're born to do. Ejaculate and evacuate, as John says. So that if that's but most men, as we were just saying, 85% of men cannot realize that. They can't affect that strategy. So they have to find ways to adapt to it. So either they got to be sneaky, they got to identify with it. There's every man has game. Every man I'm playing. You
might not be effective, but
has game. He will tell you how best to go from being sexless and single to being married and having a family and dating and getting laid and that kind of stuff. They have some idea from a very early age how effective that game is and who educated them about that game. That's the question. That's what we need to be asking these guys. Where is that all coming from? But guys, by and large, have an idea of how to circumvent, because like I said, most guys are the betas, right? 80%, 85%, I'm just going to 80-20 rule. 80% of guys have to figure out something. They got to figure out how an end run. Like, how do I get around this? How do I get in there? And that's why pickup artistry was so popular when it first came out, because it seemed like a hack. That's why they called it game, right? It's a form of game to circumvent women's hypergamous filters. But generally, prior to all of this, and because of the soulmate myth and why the soulmate myth is such a seductive thing for guys, is that men tend to opt for what's called strategic pluralism theory. And what that means is that these guys, because they are their sexual opportunity is very, very rare, certainly more rare than the 20% guys, they have to find a way to increase their value. They have to have some sort of value added. So it's fuck me and I'll be the good dad.
Exactly.
Fuck me and reproduce with me, and I'll have resources and I'll share them, and I'll be generous, and I'll be kind, I'll be funny, I'll be nice, I will love you forever. You're the one. And so you're the one sounds really good, because in strategic pluralism theory, it behooves those men. It's a better strategy for low value men to invest all of their energy and all of their psychology, all their religion, all of their into one woman, right? That's why I'm saying when I say a woman should only be a complement to a man's life rather than the focus of it, that sounds like sacrilege. That sounds like what? That sounds like what they believe, because if they don't believe that, they will never reproduce.
Exactly.
That's going on in the hindbrain anyways, is that if that's the case, if I should be the prize and she's not the prize, then she'll leave me. My one will leave me. I don't have that kind of opportunity. Or else they'll make up rationales and say, well, I'm thinking about other things. I got better things to do than try to, figure out what women are all about. You're still failing in your reproductive problem. But so when you like blue pill alphas and white knights, if you go and you say you're the prize, they're like, no, because I'll lose out on the mating market if I do that, or she's my one. And you can, that's why the soulmate and the romantic ideal is so seductive for guys, and they'll to the point where they'll kill themselves because they believe in all the sappy songs and all of the popular media that says, I could never live without you. Literally, they can't live without that person, because that's their only hope at reproduction.
No, but there is a solution for it, and this is interesting because I think a lot of guys. I was just doing a video on my membership group on this, because I have like this thing that I call the 3 levels of emotional mastery. Right, the first level is like wearing your heart on your sleeve. The second level is emotional numbness, where you're like Walking Dead. Okay, and then the third level is like feel the pain, keep on walking. Right, and what I find is the solution for this, especially for, like you said, because guys want connection. Like you said, incels. There's not truly an incel. They're looking for connection, but they're looking for it in the terms of soulmate. So what I find is the solution is non-attachment, right? And so with a non-attachment, like if guys can learn non-attachment, what they can do is they can, and again, I mean, assuming your ability to do this, but the more that you have non-attachment, the more your ability to do this would increase. They could go to a bar, they could pick up a girl that at the bar, they could fall madly in love with her for that one night, experience the depth of connection to a degree that most married men never experience, have passionate sex with her, and then the next day never see her again, and be okay with that, and you fulfilled that connection need. But in order to do that, you have to be strong enough to be able to exercise that detachment, and you have to have that abundant mentality where you're like, okay, I can develop these connections, like, because so many guys are associating that deep level of connection that we all need, that basic human need, with one person, with that one soulmate. But when you disconnect those two things, then you can experience that in a variety of ways. And I think that's what I see as the solution to this. It doesn't mean that you couldn't have a longer term relationship if you wanted to, but it's making it so that the thing that is that connection that we all need as a human need. And I think that's where a lot of, I think, red pill guys and kind of MGTOW go wrong, is they're trying to deny this basic human need. Like, I don't need a woman, like I don't need to feel connection, like a deep love with a person. You do need that. We all need that. We all strive for that in our lives.
Multiple people sometimes, right? I mean,
right.
I know what you're saying. So here's where I come in with really my first book, which is plate theory. And people hate it when they oh, what's a plate? What's this? And if you got to go read, it's a 6-part series. It's in the first book, and you can read it for free on my blog.
I got a link here, guys. By the way,
what it is, what is plate theory? It's the theory of non-exclusivity, which is exactly what you just talked about. I tell guys this. I say, do not consider monogamy until you get to be at least 30 years old, because you will not be as assuming you make the most of yourself and the most of your potential. You will not be as sexually selective, or you won't have the luxury of being as sexually selective and as good a judge of character and understanding women's nature by experience, because you were non-exclusive until you got to be 30, 33, somewhere around there. Because I peg guys' sexual market value peak as being right around 35, 36, 37 years old. And that's what it takes longer. Like, remember we said, men must become. It takes longer for men to mature. It takes longer for men to achieve, because we have to build something. So the reason why I say that 35, 36, 37 is men's peak sexual market value is because that is the time that men have the most potential to have the most of what makes them both arousing and attractive to women. Remember, we talked about the complete package, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So maybe you've done your residency at the hospital and you're a surgeon now, or maybe you made partner in the law firm. I'm just throwing those out there. It could be anything. Maybe you've started your own business, whatever. You're still in good shape. You've dated non-exclusively through your 20s. You've made the most of your opportunities. You haven't been tied down to anything. And the reason why you are a high value man is because you didn't form any long-term relationships between the ages of, say, like 18 and 30 years old, because you followed up on the opportunities that were allowed you to become and to maximize your potential when you get to be 35, 36 years old. If you fall into the idea that the only way of dating, the only legitimate way of having sex, the only legitimate way of dating is to be, I'm a one man or one woman man, right? If that's right, you, then that's why, it's funny. I don't think most guys are. Most men are serial monogamists. They wouldn't ever consider dating consecutive women, right? Or contiguous women. Like, they would not have a roster of 3 or 4 girls, but they'll have 3 or 4 girls one after the other, because that's what the way that they were brought up. So when your friend says, well, I can never do that, or I'm a one woman kind of guy, or when I say you need to be non-exclusive throughout your 20s and then don't even consider being monogamous until you get to your early 30s, if I say that, it sounds like I'm the devil, because I am going against everything that they've been taught since the time they were 5 years old, because their female feminist teachers, their mothers, their female influenced upbringing, both not just family, religious wise, teachers wise, media wise, pop culture wise, psychology wise, everything gears guys to make women their mental point of origin, not themselves.
Exactly.
And you want to know what, if I had to distill the blue pill down to one message, is that a village of people, the modern society, modern Western culture, that the blue pill conditions you to make women your mental point of origin and not yourself your mental point of origin. And it's a systematic social engineering project that's been going on since the sexual revolution. So when guys tell me I could never be like that, or it's too much trouble to try to figure that, I got to lie to these girls, how can I keep track of my life? No, you don't, because you're the prize. You're somebody that is high value, and at least think of yourself as such. Because what happens is, like, they'll make up all these rationales, like, well, I can't do that. Or it's like juggling. Who wants to have all that headache? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, you will go. And I know this because I went from being very blue pill in my teenage years, believing that same thing. Like, well, it's one man, one woman, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then I got into my own party years, my rock star 20s. And then I experienced abundance for the first time in my life. Like, I had, like, playing in the Hollywood metal scene, I had a lot of women that wanted, I had 40 plus women, like, but between the ages of, like, say 17 and like about 26, that's where, like, the majority of my 40 plus notch count came from. And this is like back in the day where there's no internet, right? I mean, this is like the early 90s. And so when I was going through all of that, I had experienced abundance for the first time. And suddenly I have a different opinion of myself. I changed my mind about myself. I was no longer that naive 17, 18, 19-year-old who would have been happy to go, yeah, I'll marry the first girl that has sex with me because she's my one. Exactly. And now I realize how women really are, and I understood women's nature and everything, and I was a better judge of character later on as a result of that. But most guys won't do that because they're in a scarcity mentality for most of their lives. And then in comes mythology like the soulmate, like this is the only way you should do it. Maybe it's your religion, maybe it's your convictions, maybe it's just the way you think things ought to be. Maybe you don't want to be like your old man. I don't want to be an alcoholic son of a bitch like my old man who left my mom, and I know I have to take care of my poor mother. And then he realizes that he becomes his dad. He becomes the one that he hates by circumstance, by women's nature. And he's figuring out for himself what his dad figured out probably 20 years prior.
Well, it's like, it comes down to the fact that, like, I think a lot of guys they say that, oh, I would never do that, or I could never be that kind of guy. Decision without choices is an illusion, right? So when you say I would never do this, but you don't actually have the choice, then it's false. You don't know what you would do, right? So what I always tell guys as I say, well, if you had the opportunity to fuck multiple women at the same time, then you could tell me. Then if you had the opportunity and then you say, no, I won't do it, then I would believe you. But I can't believe you, because you can't know what you would do unless you're given a choice. And so most guys, I think why they say that is because they don't have a choice. And so given that they don't have a choice, they just say that whatever their non-choice is, that must be the best choice. And they pretend like they're choosing something when it's really being given to them or force-fed to them, as opposed to something that they've chosen.
Well, and then they build, remember we were talking about mythology. Another myth is the myth of the quality woman, like that she's trying to say here as well. Now, women are going, you can trust women to be women. Right. I hear this all the time, guys, especially from married guys who's like, well, I married a quality woman. Yeah. Until you're sitting across from her at the divorce settlement. And now she's that bitch that took all that money from you, or she's that bitch that took your kids away from you. So no guy that I know of has ever married a woman who wasn't a quality woman. It's just a quality woman is just an ideal that guys use to say, well, she's an exception to the rule. I'm going to, like, they want your permission and your blessing to go into the unconscionable contract, right? And so the way that they do that is they say, she's exceptional, she's quality. We're looking for a quality woman. Now, do you want a woman who has, certain value added to her? Yeah, absolutely. But the idea of the quality woman is just, I put that on par with the soulmate myth, because it's like, oh, she's the one, she's quality, she's the one. What was it? When I was doing the Will Smith video, like Jada Pinkett Smith was the diamond in the rough, right? Yeah. Do you still think she's a diamond in the rough? Will, I don't think so, right? Well, because it's a myth. It's it's the stories we tell ourselves because we're making the choice, because we're kind of sketchy about it, but we're like, it's all right. I'll convince myself if it's okay, and we'll go.
And here's the proof of it. A lot of it, women are the emulators, right? Men are the leaders, in the sense that, like, you can take, and I've seen this multiple times. You have the same woman, right? And she's with one guy, okay? And the first guy she's with, she just abuses him. She walks all over him. She cheats on him. She treats him like shit, okay? He has a miserable existence, whatever. Then you see her eventually, break up with this guy, and she goes with another guy. She treats this new guy like a king, right? She cooks for him. She cleans for him. She's respectful to him. She would never cheat on him. Like, she treats him like, so that's where, like, that the quality woman, a lot of times it's a reflection of the man, not always. And obviously there's some immutable traits that belong to the woman herself, or belong to the person themselves. But in many cases that I find when I'm working with guys, it's them, it's their behavior. It's how, because women are not the leaders. Women will emulate, and they're actually, so in game, we always talk about being non-reactive, right? Guys are non-reactive, women are reactive. And so in relationships, women are reactive. And so they're reacting to the energy and the kind of man that you are, and the dominance or not. In the void of masculinity, women will fill it with their own masculinity. And that's what happens a lot of times. And so a lot of guys that think they're, that they're chasing this quality woman, they're chasing a myth, like a unicorn, because they can never find a quality woman, because they're not a man that produces the elements that they're looking for in a woman when they're in a relationship. And so the problem is that they're searching for something outside when it's here where they need to fix themselves.
Right. Well, I mean, you've got to be, I think, I don't know if I brought this up on Rule 0 one time, but I think that what happens is when women marry guys, when women become, like, they say, okay, I'm going to accept you intimately. Even if that guy ends up backsliding, even if that guy, because I get this all the time. Guys will say, Rollo, how do I get the frame back? We used to have such great monkey sex before we were married, and now she's turned the sex spigot off. Now I'm in a dead bedroom, or I get starfish sex or whatever. Even in those situations, though, the women, if you were to attack their husband, they would defend him tooth and nail. They would say, no, he's a great man. He does everything a man should do, especially religious women. He does everything that a man should do. And she will only badmouth him amongst her girlfriends, if that's the case, if she gets comfortable in doing that. But what women tend to do is, in some, like, if another man, put it this way, if another man attacks her husband, she will defend the husband and say, you suck, and shame him and do, the finger thing, do that, to defend that guy. Maybe not with her girlfriends, but certainly if another man says, hey man, you're a pussy, you need to man up, she'll go, he's a great man, you should never attack him, blah, blah, blah. Even though she knows she's going to go home and browbeat the guy, because that man is an association of her ego.
Exactly.
So it's because, remember what I said about hypergamy is that, they want the bigger and better deal, of course, but what hypergamy is based on is that doubt. Is he the best I can do? Women don't like to be reminded by other people that he's not the best that they can do, if that's what they believe, right? So if they're locked into a situation with this guy who she's like, well, I don't think he's the best I can do, but God forbid you attack him, because if you attack him, that means that I'm the kind of girl that can't get the best.
Exactly.
So, and you'll hear this when guys, and I hate this because it's mostly like blue pill kind of, and I hate to say religious guys that will do this all the time, but most men do this, is they will self-deprecate when they're introducing their wives, or if they're talking about their wives. So they believe that the less that they make them, the more that their women, like the higher the pedestal, right? So what they'll say is that they're introducing their wife is like, oh, here's my better half. Even that little thing, like, my better half.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, oh man, it must be a God thing, because I don't understand why she be with a schmuck like me, or I don't believe, how lucky I got. It's all fate and fortune at that point. I don't believe how lucky I got when she, I don't know how she puts up with me. Right. Like, I've heard that so many times, that the first thing out of their mouths is, I don't know why it must be, we must be preordained, because she really puts up with my crap all the time. Me failing and being an idiot and a ridiculous, Homer Simpson husband. I don't know how she does it. It must be true love. Right. That's how they introduce, and of course the wife's over there kind of like,
exactly. And they're not having hot sex. That's not happening.
Well, it's not so much that, is that the reason why women find that cringy is because it's an insult to them. Women want to get with it, and you've said this too, because it's from my book. Women want to get with a guy that other men want to be and other women want to fuck.
100%.
And if you're saying, I'm a schmuck and I suck and I'm ridiculous and I can't believe how lucky I got, but boy, she must really love this schmuck, ridiculous, stupid, failing man, what does that say about her? This is the only kind of guy this is the dude you're going to marry, even if it's in jest, even if it's just like, oh, I'm laughing at myself. Well, here's the little lady, like that kind of thing. But guys believe that. They believe that if they make themselves less, it makes their wives more. It doesn't. It's like when I introduce my wife, or like people think I'm being cocky, right? I'll go, yeah, she's lucky to have me.
Right.
Oh my God. And I'm joking around, right? But that's the first thing I know. So
but women want that, because they want to and that's why they want to have the king, right? I mean, I've been in relationships where women where she's like, where they want to call me sir or king, and it's like, because that's what they want, and they want you to act that way because they want to feel like they've got someone of very high value, like you said, and they want you to be like. That's why the cocky funny works so well in game, is because you're coming in there already with that higher value, like they're seeing that value right there. So
out too, and a lot of people think you're an arrogant prick for doing that. It's not that. Like I've worked in the liquor industry for a long time, and I've had like the women that I work with, or even in the casinos, right? I've had women go, "Oh, your wife is such a saint. She loves you so much." Like in every picture, she's like looking at me and like, she loves me. She does. Good. Thank you. I'm in a happy, committed relationship where she defers to my authority and she loves me. And that change tomorrow? Yes, it could. But I've had people go, man, I don't know. I don't understand how she puts up with you. And I'm like, she's lucky to have me.
Right.
I deadpan it. Right. I'm just like, she's lucky to have me.
You have to have that frame. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, continue, man. We got to get through this.
Yeah,
we're at an hour and a half right now. So
real quick here, Southern Israelite. Yes, I will debate you on that if you like. Just email me and we'll schedule something. So I'm not going to turn it down. So
send me that. I'll look at those.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Send that to Rollo. In fact, maybe we'll both do.
Notes.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Shoot, I lost the spot there. We'll see. Well, we'll just bounce around a little bit anyway. So.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go towards the back part where I start to really get a little rough with her.
Is that what you want? Are you chasing like a guy for his status and his money? If not, then you're definitely going to find someone. Like I said, there's 7 billion people in the world. For people to think that only a guy who has these traits, who is a high value guy, is going to make me happy. That's what's dangerous, I think, is that, okay, like stop chasing this stereotypical guy because you think that a high value person is going to bring you happiness. Maybe a person that values themselves, but like I said, if the person has nothing in this world but one piece of bread and you're starving and he's going to eat it all, then what's the point? You need someone there who's like not looking for you to fulfill anything in them. And
well, yeah, I agree with that. That's for sure. You need to find a person. You should not be looking for a person to fulfill anything in you. It's not Jerry Maguire. You don't complete me, right? It's like,
what does a high value person mean then? Why does it mean like I need to find this person who has these high value traits to make me happy?
Well, it's not to make you happy. It's as an addition to your life, right? And it's really a matter of what are you going to do in your 30s? So let's pretend like we're playing the marriage game, okay?
This will be good.
And here's the deal, right? You have to get married. You have to pick a guy, all right? And you're gonna. Okay, there's no option for divorce, right? And there's no polyamory. You're in Saudi Arabia. If you do any polyamory shit, they're gonna cut off your hands and stone you or whatever. Okay, so you got to pick some guy. All right, there's a lineup of guys. What guy are you going to pick to spend the rest of your life with? No cheating.
And I've never met him. I'm just seeing a lineup of guys. No, I know them, right?
You can have like a 5-minute conversation with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which guy are you going to pick? I've got, and I could give you, kind of descriptions of guys, but in general, are you going to pick, let's put it this way. Are you going to pick an alpha male or are you going to pick a beta male?
Mm-hmm. So, right. I guess most people would say alpha, but for me, I'm very alpha. So I cling better with betas most of the time, even though I do think alphas are more sexy. But to me, like yin and yang is very important. And I think people need to be aware of that. If you try and find someone who's on the same like wavelength as you, or like the same, the same kind of like power as you, then, sometimes that could go awry, because yin and yang is a real thing. Like most people think like, I'm going to find someone who's as outgoing as I am, or can do all the things I do, but really like, why not add somebody who's completely opposite from you?
Okay.
The opposite of what you're thinking.
All right, hold it there for a second. That's pretty good here. So let's backtrack a little bit. I mean, we talked about the happiness thing a minute ago, so we don't have to recover that one. The other thing is there's no such thing as an alpha female. So let's clarify that right now. I shouldn't say that there's no such thing as an alpha. There is such thing as an alpha female, but what she is describing as an alpha female, like I'm an alpha female, so I get along better with betas. So basically, you're the man and he's the woman, because I think if I was to talk to this girl, the first thing I would say is, do you believe that there is such a thing as an egalitarian marriage? And I guarantee she'd probably say yes, at least at this stage in her life. So first off is there's no such thing as an alpha female, at least not in the way that the definition that she's thinking right now. Because, and I've locked horns with Dr. Taylor Burroughs about this and other, I have it's not in any book, but I have an essay called The Myth of the Alpha Female. Because the alpha female, what our popular impression of an alpha female is like Sheryl Sandberg, right? Is the powerful CEO, go-getter, type A personality, who's a careerist woman, who's just a go-getter and dominant personality and blah, 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 right? And then we would say that person is an alpha female, that girl, that female is an alpha female. But in fact, what she is she's an alpha male, because her definition of alpha is based on a male context. So all of the things that she finds attractive in alpha males, all of those valuable, she just enumerated all of those values, right? He's got to be a go-getter. He's got to do this. He's got to do the same things that I would do because I'm an alpha female, right? So what does that entail? What does an alpha female entail to you? Because every aspect of being an alpha female, I will guarantee you, will be an aspect that women would find attractive in an alpha male. So her definition, her context of what makes someone alpha, a female alpha or a male alpha, is all based on a male model, on a masculine, positive, upper, dominant. It could be dark triad for all I care, but it's that I'm a bitch, right? I'm a supervisor. I'm a Karen. I'm a whatever. Like they're proud of it, right? I'm an alpha female, but then they'll also say in the same breath, but I can be feminine. It's like, no, remember what did we just talk about? How feminism makes women, or gynocentrism makes women believe that they can be the best of both. I can be the best masculine and I can be the best feminine. They don't want to let go of the feminine part because they know that if they do, then that, men might not want to get with them. By and large, heterosexual, red-blooded heterosexual men with a healthy level of testosterone don't want to fuck other men. They want to fuck women. That's what they want to fuck. They don't. And if you emulate an alpha female, if you emulate I should say that if you're a female, you have a vagina, and you emulate all of the characteristics that you find attractive and you think are valuable in an alpha male, that doesn't make you an alpha female. That makes you an alpha male.
Exactly.
With a vagina and boobs, right? That's what you're basically a sex swapped alpha male is what it is. Now, there is such a thing as an alpha female. You know who she looks like? To me, she looks like Renee Summerfield, the swimsuit model, Renee Summerfield. Go look her up, guys. That's an alpha female right there, not Sheryl Sandberg. And you know why? Because from a female perspective, in a female context, what do men select for? Beauty and fertility, youth, beauty, and fertility. And so if you've got big boobs, you got a nice hip to waist ratio, you look good, you look like you're a good breeding material. Again, men, all she has to be is hot and available. Sexual availability and sexual fitness. That's what men select for. So the hottest woman that the one that really gets you going and gets your blood boiling, right? That is an alpha female. Renee Summerfield is an alpha female before Sheryl Sandberg is, because I'm looking at that in terms of her being a female in a female context, not in a male context. And that's where women just like this, and she did the same thing with John from Modern Life Dating. She did the same thing, is like she believes that she's an alpha female. It's like, no, you're not an alpha female. You are an alpha male in a woman's body. And you do yourself no favors by believing that what the same qualities, the same aspects that make a man attractive make you attractive. They don't. It's like guys who here's another good parallel. You'll get guys who want to be male feminists, or what I call the identification game. The more alike I am with a woman, the more I make myself more feminine. The more I identify with the feminine, the more I get in touch with my feelings and I express myself emotionally, and I do all of these conventionally feminine aspects, and I add them to my personality. I internalize them, and I just do them naturally. And suddenly you have the soy boys, and you have all these guys who we would say are stereotypical soy boy beta males, and you think that is what gets women off. It's exactly the same dynamic as the alpha female. So women believe that they should be attractive, or that men should want them for the same characteristics and the same aspects that they find attractive in men. And it simply doesn't work because we didn't evolve that way. We want polarity. I want you to be a woman and I'll be the man. How's that? I'll be the dominant, you be the sub, right? And that's another thing about human nature, and I'll stop after this, is that even in homosexual relationships, there's always a dominant and there's a sub. There is always a masculine, a butch lesbian, and then there's the female, the feminine one, right?
100%,
in homosexual men, there's a top and there's a bottom, right? There's a pitcher and a catcher, right? There's always a dominant, and it falls along masculine feminine ideals. So when you put two people together, whether they're same sex or they're the opposite sex, that dynamic is in play. She just admitted this now. I'm more alpha. What she's saying is I'm more masculine. I have been conditioned to believe that masculine traits are what makes me attractive. Therefore, I tend to attract beta male men. I tend to attract guys who are, and she probably did the same thing with you. I haven't watched the whole video, but when she went on with John from Modern Life Dating, he instantly assumed frame, because he's a more dominant alpha male guy. And he knows game. He's cocky and he's funny. He's using amuse mastery. He's using all these things that she has no idea. And she instantly becomes attracted to the guy. You can tell in her body language and her voice. And I will say I have confirmation of this. Let's just say that she was attracted to John. And why? He's not beta male, and not by any behavioral indications. Right?
Because he brought her into her feminine because he was
he assumes masculine dominance. And now what happens? She assumes feminine submission. And I don't mean submission like, oh, I'm a poor slave. I mean, like she defers to his frame. That's all. It's not like you're turning these women into slaves. It's just that they defer to your authority. They defer to your frame. You have the world into which they want to enter. She's never had to, as far as I know, she's never experienced that with any other guy than John.
Yeah.
Because she's telling you right now that I'm more alpha male or alpha female, and that she has guys who sort of submit to her because they're the more beta, they're more passive. She's the more dominant. Women don't want that naturally. Women did not evolve for that. They're looking for the guy who makes 58% more. They're looking for it was Patrice O'Neill who said this. He says, women want a guy who's taller than them, broader than them, more muscular than they are, makes more money than they are, has a better smile than they do, has a better personality, is funnier than they are, is all these things, but they want them to think that she's the equal. Exactly. Equal, right? And I'll just leave it at this. Women cannot look up to a man who is her equal.
Exactly. In fact, to speak to what you said about the lesbian aspect of like that polarity, within my men's group, my men's membership group, I have a couple of paying women that are lesbian, right? And they've emailed me and said, I love the content that you're producing. I couldn't tell anyone else that I love this content because I am the masculine one in the relationship and I like feminine women. Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show you, I mean, it's like the exact same principles I'm teaching men. They're learning from and absorbing and using, because you're always going to have that dynamic. You cannot have sexuality without polarization.
Funny you should say that, because when I usually talk about like dominant submissive, like master and servant, right? It's the dominant submissive dynamic between human beings. That comes from, and again, another essay that's never been published, but I have an essay that I wrote very early when I first started the blog, and it's called Sexual Fluidity. And I wrote it because Oprah Winfrey had done this show on her show, because she still had the show going on then, about how women who would hit like 38 to 40 years old decided to like dump their husbands, and they suddenly found out that they're lesbians.
Yeah.
And what women look for it, the women who had been married before to really weak beta husbands, this is almost across the board. And what they took up with butch lesbian, basically men, alpha females, right?
Exactly.
Who filled the role that their husband wasn't filling because they were too aged out or whatever. They couldn't get they couldn't play cougar, and they wanted to be in a monogamous relationship. And so they opted for women who reminded them of their father, the dominant fathers, or women who were more like butch masculine men, because that is the dynamic. And so that's why when I see stuff like this, I'll get the same thing. Like women are, I'll have dominant masculine men who are homosexuals who will be watching my stuff, or they'll say, does this apply to homosexuals as well? I said, well, the dominant submissive side certainly does, because that's part of human nature.
And there's also, it's kind of, I don't want to go too far derailing it, but I have it there. I was just doing a video about this where I was talking to this guy that had, androgynephilia, like where you're attracted to yourself as a woman, right? Mm-hmm. The idea. And I was telling him that, I have this theory that a lot of gay men, not all gay men, obviously, but a lot of them, the reason why they're gay is not because they're necessarily attracted to men, but because they cannot compete in the sexual marketplace. And so they compete in a place where they can compete. So they're opting out of that game, going into another game and feminizing themselves where they can win. Exactly. And, obviously it's not all men, like it's not all gay men. I know that there's definitely components, but I think there's a significant portion of them that's like, it's a sexual strategy. It's like you said, it's game. It's game.
Exactly what Milo Yiannopoulos says about himself. Is that
interesting.
He became gay. He doesn't believe that people are born gay, and I don't either. I until I see definitive DNA proof. Like some people say, well, it's testosterone or it's whatever in the womb. There might be a little bit of a biological condition, a factor involved in it. I don't know until we find a gay gene and we can either edit it out or put it back in to confirm whether that's there, or maybe it's a combination thereof. But for the most part, I think that homosexuality is behavioral. I'm not saying it's a choice. I think that behaviorally, it seems like the best option to go that way to fulfill whatever that sexual need is or whatever the reproductive need is, that kind of stuff. And I think you're probably right about that. And Milo says something similar. Again, I don't think that people go, do I want to be gay or do I not want to?
No. Yeah.
And when guys tell me or women tell me, I can't help the way I feel. I believe you. I believe them.
Right, of course.
I believe that this isn't a choice for me. I 100% believe that, because it's somewhere along the line in your upbringing, from the time you were a kid to where you are now as a homosexual adult, things, circumstances, belief sets, something was reinforced, something was punished, whatever it was. Maybe you're an abuse. I don't know, but maybe it was. Maybe you go, you know what? Maybe this is the best for me. So when I see like that sexual fluidity thing for women at 40 on Oprah, who are literally choosing to be homosexual, I have to go, maybe it was behavioral. Maybe it's not. Were they born that way? Clearly not. They had kids with another guy, and now suddenly they've decided that they want to be in a monogamous relationship with a butch lesbian woman. What that tells me is that they can't get what they wanted from the beta male guy in a relationship with a biological male. So, yeah, I would say I think that behaviorism is much more influential on homosexuality than any genetic. And I'm not saying that there's not, but I'm just saying it's probably more behavioral than it is genetic.
And I think I read it in Sperm Wars where you're saying that like a very high percentage of like how it would be passed on genetically is a very high percentage of gay men are actually bisexual and have had sex with women. And the interesting aspect of that is like, I always tell guys, because a lot of times I'll be coaching guys and they'll say, oh, my girlfriend or whatever, she has this gay guy friend. And I'm always like, yeah, that doesn't mean it's safe. That like, watch out, because one night, it's like, because a lot of those guys are like the fact that a lot of gay guys are bisexual means that it sort of lends some credibility to that theory that potentially it's behavioral, like you said, is because, they're making a choice. Because obviously, if they can get it out, like for a woman to have sex, it doesn't require anything. For a man to have sex, he must have arousal, right? And so if a man who's gay successfully has sex with a woman, that he had to get arousal, because it's not possible to do it without that. So
right. I think I've seen stats for this, is that, and I think it was Dr. Meredith Chivers did this, where she was looking into like sexual response for heterosexual men versus homosexual men versus heterosexual women versus homosexual women. And for quote unquote heterosexual women get turned on by a way more broad variety of erotica and things that really sort of get them going, even monkey sex, right? I mean, whether it's homosexual, whether it's whatever. For heterosexual men, it is like the most strict, most stringent thing. It's got to be, one man, one woman, or it's like one man and multiple women, right? It doesn't. In some cases, it can't even be like two guys banging one girl, right? When they're looking at porn, and then there's by order of degree. But guys who are like stereotypically heterosexual, they find they're much more focused on one thing, which is heterosexual sex. For gay men, they tend to be more aroused by gay sex, but also by heterosexual sex as well. For women, it is like one of the things that gets me, and this is sort of I'll throw this out there, is a lot of guys, I'm sure you've heard this before, is like guys will say, or you'll hear this in popular media or online or whatever, guys will say, well, women are more sexual than men, right? They've just been repressed or something. And what that is that's men's game. They're trying to say, well, I wouldn't repress you. You can be yourself and go and have monkey sex, and you can.
Yeah, they forget about testosterone. But
they think that's thing. But biologically, physiologically, that is a physiological impossibility for a woman to be more into sex or to want sex more than a man does. Because men have 12 to 17 times the serum testosterone than women do. Our sexuality is always on. That's why you can get a hard on like that. I mean, if you have enough testosterone in your bloodstream, you can get a hard on like that. See a centerfold, whatever. Whenever you see when men see a half naked woman, it triggers a part of our brain that is associated with tool use, because we're trying to figure out how can we solve our reproductive problems. Well, we need a tool, right? We need something to solve it with. We see, and when women say, "Oh, you objectify us sexually," yes. Every man on planet Earth objectifies you sexually. They have to. That's why you're here. That's why we're all here now, because men sexually objectified women. We see women as parts, and then we see them as a whole. We don't see them as, oh, your loving soul. I just see right through your eyes and I can see your soul. No, that's bullshit. We look and say, okay, nice legs, nice ass. She's got a nice thigh gap. She's got a good, hip to waist ratio. She's got big boobs. She's got a nice symmetrical face. She looks like she's in shape, blah, blah, blah. Go. And that happens in a split second. And we're looking at a list of objects before we look at the whole. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to sexually objectify women, because women will objectify you just the same way. But because we live in a client-centric social order, we go, you horrible, evil men. And it's like, no, there's biological differences. Again, it is physiologically impossible for a woman to be into sex or to have the same kind of sexuality that men do. Just what you're saying a minute ago. When it comes to homosexual men, one of the reasons, this is just me spitballing here, one of the reasons I think that some men become homosexuals is because it's the path of least resistance. Because when it's a man and a woman, you're dealing with a hypergamous filter. You have to qualify. You have to be more than what she thinks you are. You have to find some way to get in there. When it's two guys, it's gay bathhouse time. There's no filter. There's no barrier to there's no barrier to entry when it comes to gay sex, if they're both into it and we're ready to go, that kind of stuff. It's all about the orgasm at that point. Whereas for women, there's some qualifications and things that go on there. Right. I will say this, let me throw one more caveat out there, is that although women, it's a physiological impossibility for them to be as into sex or as to enjoy sex or whatever qualitative thing you want to talk about how women would be more sexual if you remove those barriers. Women are more sexual than certainly 80% of guys, maybe more, believe they actually are. Because women's sexuality is cyclic. It goes according to their ovulatory shift. It goes according to the ovulatory cycle, whereas men's is always on. So why does it take a lot? If men and women are just as much into each other, why is there no like 24-hour strip clubs for women to go get with their guys, right? Why is it that we have, we'll arrest guys for touching women in a strip club, but we won't do it for men? Why? Because of course not. I can show you example after example of how that's bullshit. But we believe that. But I will say this. Most guys don't realize just how sexual women are. They're not as sexual as they are, but they're a lot more than they let on, because they have to. Men tend to overestimate women's sexual interest, and women tend to underestimate men's sexual interest, because evolutionarily speaking, that's what kept us alive.
Good strategy. Yeah. Well, and one thing I think that leads men to the conclusion, the confusion, I guess we'll say, that women are more sexual than men, is because they may be actually having more sex than men. Because there's actually a really good book, I think we talked about in Rule 02, I mentioned it. It's called Why Women Have Sex. I recommend that you guys read it. Is because there's one reason why men have sex. It's because they're horny, because they want to get laid, right? Or the secondary reason could be conquest, right? So that's
what women would like you to believe. They would, because we have to add some sort of esoteric meaning to it. It's really not like I want to get off.
I mean, I'll admit I've done the conquest thing before, but just
but if that was the case, then nobody would care about pornography as much as they do. Because there's conquest in pornography. There's only fucking some other girl, right? But there's no conquest in pornography. Which is more popular? Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can show you the GSS studies where we've got like 18 to 24 or 29-year-old guys who are having like 10 times less sex than the generation before them. But the women of their generation in that cohort,
almost the same.
A lot of sex.
but so what it comes down to then is men have the perception that women are want sex more or more sexual because they're having sex more, because women are having sex for a variety of reasons, right? So because guys always will say, "Oh, well, my girlfriend wants sex all the time. She has a higher sex drive than me." And that might be true, but more likely than not, she's seeking validation more often. She's wanting sex because she's wanting to have sex with you so that she's still getting your attention and feeling like you love her, that like she's getting that validation. She's not doing it because she's horny, right? Or she's doing it because she knows that that's a way that she can get something she wants, or so she's constantly doing that. So
I can tell you why that is.
Yeah.
So here's why that is. Like when guys tell me, they say, well, my girlfriend, she always wants to have sex on it and I don't want to, or we have mismatched libidos. It's always, when we talk about mismatched libidos, it's always a woman is frigid and the guy wants to have more sex. Like he's in a sexless marriage. That's usually the state. Like we come up with these bullshit reasons about like, oh, she's just not into it. She's less sexual than I am. No, she's less sexual for you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Not for Jason Momoa. She wants to get that. She wants to go see Aquaman, and you can just go do whatever you're going to do. But the reason for that is what did I just tell you about like sexual market value imbalances? So when you have a woman who is, let's just say she's a 6, right, and you're a 7. So you're one step above her. She is incentivized to have more sex with you because she's trying to keep you on. That's her value added, right? Or to lock you down. I better have sex with this guy and get pregnant because he might leave, or I'm going to get with this guy and that's going to be that. Or you might be. And most bodybuilders, you probably have experienced this yourself. Most bodybuilders will experience this too. Is they'll be with a woman who is like, let's just say perceptually, she believes she's 2 steps below that guy. That's what's kind of dicey. If she believes you're 2 steps above, she wants to be suicidal because she will get insanely jealous and suspicious of you banging other girls.
Oh yeah.
And so when you get, let's just say you're 2 steps, like she's a 6 and you're an 8, or she believes you're an 8. She is way more motivated to have sex with you, to lock you down, to keep the fish on the hook. It's the same thing. Guys will do the same thing. Like it's just pragmatism. She's just using what her best agency is which is, hey, come home and fuck me, please. Or I can't get enough of you kind of thing. Nobody's going to bang you as well as I am. I know I'm not as hot as the girls who are interested in you. Remember, women want to get with guys who other men want to be and other women want to bang. Well, when other women want to bang you, that creates a lot of dread. How do women deal with dread? They fuck you more.
Exactly. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's see. We got a super chat here from Zuko Fred, $20. He says, this is all true, fellas. I was in an LTR and thought she was the one until I decided to leave my 80K year job to pursue my business. She left the same day I left my job. LOL. The one is told us have several ones. Right. And we got here
good ones and bad ones. There is no one.
Exactly. Eddie Daniels, $5. He says, women will behave as long as they know that they're replaceable. For cavemen, there was no such thing as a marriage contract. Yeah.
That goes. Here's Eddie Daniels. There's a great book by Tim Burkhead. It's called Promiscuity. When and this is just not just human beings, but mammals, primates, everything. When you see 2 animals, a male and a female, and they're in what looks like a monogamous arrangement, it's because the female wants to be there for some motivation for her to be there. It's also Brifelt's law. Okay. As soon as the benefit of being monogamous is removed, that woman will leave, or the female will leave. And it's not just humans, like I said.
Let's see. I'll just get through. I think we got 2 more. Ibs $4.99. He says, from my understanding, did Rollo just say a woman who is 38 left her weak husband for a GI Joe masculine lesbian by choice for the alpha turmoil?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. You know why? And you know why that is because women seek indignation. When a woman is in a kind of a sexless, kind of boring marriage, she's looking for indignation through other sources. Sometimes that's like daytime television. It might be The View. It might be her girlfriends who are still single. It might be her daughter. There's a lot of ways that women seek out indignation. And when it gets to the point where the responsibility or the benefits don't outweigh, leaving or what it seems like a good advantage for her to get out of it, she'll go and find whatever works best for her. It's kind of like eat, pray, love, right?
Yeah.
It's what Dalrock used to call divorce porn. And there's a lot of it now, which is leave your husband. You'll have a better life if you leave your husband.
Yeah. Which is another good reason why, like, I think a lot of guys, they make the mistake in their long-term relationships of walking on eggshells, thinking that they don't want to rock the boat. not realizing that women want the drama, that they're actually craving the drama.
Yeah. I told, and this locks in. I don't think I've ever done a full show on dread. I should probably do one. But there's two kinds of dread. There's overt dread and there's passive dread. Passive dread is when you're like so hot that other women flirt with you, kind of. That's passive dread. It's third party dread. It's dread that you didn't initiate. But like most guys, if like they're at a bar or a restaurant or something, and the waitress flirts with them in front of their wives or their girlfriends, they'll go, "No, baby, you're the only girl for me. I wouldn't." It's that what I say, a strategic pluralism theory. They've put all their energy into this one, and for another girl to be hot for you, those guys respond with trying to diffuse the jealousy, or, "Oh no, I would never,"
which is so bad.
I would, what I tell guys is go with it.
Exactly.
Go with it. Yeah. I'm not saying like overt dread would be you flirting with the waitress. Covert dread is the waitress flirting with you, and you going along with it and say, "Hey, what can I do?" She's
just got good taste. She's
you should be glad I'm with you. I'm a high. Clearly, I'm a high. It's most guys who are in a long-term relationship or marriage or whatever, they have zero occasion to demonstrate higher value, but also to demonstrate pre-selection. So most when they've been in a marriage for like 4 or 5 years, 7 years, whatever, they don't have any occasion for by that time their testosterone's so low and they're like, okay, nobody's who wants to flirt with that guy? Nobody. But if you look like you, if you look like me, if you look like guys who have something going for them, whatever, and a woman who does flirt with you, I've worked in the liquor industry for so long that it's like that dread was one of the first things I figured out. And passive dread. It's one thing to go and tell a woman, say, "Hey, bitch, if you don't shape up, I'm gonna go and bang that Becky over there." Right? That's overt dread. But the much more useful dread is when you're around beautiful women and the women like you, and if they don't even you don't have to flirt back. They just have to like, "Hey, what are you doing, Mr. Tomassi?" That if you have that kind of dynamic going, and you go, "I'm never going to cheat. I have the opportunity, but I won't because I'm with you," right? That's passive dread, but women love that shit. Again, polarity. You need to have something there where you can. Most guys, you want to know why your marriage goes to shit and you get into a sexless marriage is because you don't stoke. You have no. You have no security or whatever. You're totally insecure about like instigating or experimenting with dread, with indignation, with stoking that. And I don't mean like overtly, but just covertly doing that. Guys will never do that because they think it's all about comfort and rapport. And she needs to be comfortable with me. And I would never do that. She'll leave me. Yeah. You know why you think that? Because you're still stuck in the scarcity mentality. That probably got you into the marriage in the first place, right? You're still stuck in the idea that, I can't do that because she'll leave me and my one will leave me. So you're going to be stuck in this sexless marriage. You're going to be stuck in this boring ass marriage, and she's going to go marry a butch lesbian at 40.
And women try and do it all the time because they know it, right? Because women, what will they do? They'll come home and they'll say, "Oh, this funny thing happened to me today. I was walking. This guy who just kept on hollering at me. I was at the store and this guy was just totally hitting on me." Right? She tells you the story because that's the thing that works on women, and guys often buy into it, and they instead of like dismissing it, they get jealous or whatever. But she's doing exactly what, like, if you look at what women do, that's exactly what will work on them, right? The reason why she's parroting that story is because she thinks she's trying to evoke the same thing that like you just said, that dread would evoke within her if she saw that happening. So, All right, let's see here. We got Simple Fly says, "Preach it, Rollo. Women are never the priority. The self is a priority in becoming a high value individual." And then he also said, "Well, I would love to see you devote a show to BPD."
He's one of my followers. He's a guy that shows up on my show quite a bit. He's emailed me. I think he's one of my Patreon followers. So I'm probably going to do that on my Patreon stream. I'll do a BPD show on Patreon.
And Mark Zolo, Naughty Nomad, shout out to you, man. He says, "No question, just wanted to buy you a pint, John. Great convo, guys. Keep up the good work." All right, so let's jump to, I think, let's go towards kind of
like 5 or 10 more minutes. So,
okay. Let's get to the part where let me see. I'm going to try and find this part that was good, kind of at the end here.
Yourself against that inevitable bad. You might as well consider her gone because you anyone. I don't think that's a good arrangement for anyone.
Why that's so outlandish.
And about It was good. I had something good. Be civilized, right? We'd like to like not have gender roles. We'd like to say that everyone's the same. But when it comes down to our primal sexual nature, women want a man. They don't want a boy.
I think that's why women are unhappy, because they don't know what they want, and they think they want all these things that television and radio and people tell them to think. But that's why everybody
they do want them. That's why they buy the book, right? I mean, if you're going to buy some female pornography to get off on, it's going to be something that you actually.
And I'm talking about 50 Shades of Grey,
which is going to be that, right? I mean, that's what the book is, right? So.
What about dominatrix? That's a whole industry. That's literally.
That is for completely wussy beta males. That's
oh God. See, and that's something like men, I feel like men who are insecure in themselves can't handle an alpha woman, and that's what this whole world is. Men just trying to be like, oh my God, be there for me, I need you, be my little wife. No, like find someone who's as batty as you are. Like
men cannot handle an alpha woman. That's true, because a lot of men are not alpha enough to handle an alpha woman, right?
Yeah.
You have to know how to handle an alpha woman, right? And what alpha women want is they want a man to dominate them.
See, I'm the type of person that'll like be the complete opposite. Like I'll tie you up, like I'll be that person. I like that better. I get a more rush. I feel more like myself. And I don't think that just because a man is submissive, I love it when a man is submissive, like not all the time, let me put that out there, men, but I really do love that. I feel like it's a sense, like when guys can joke about their sexuality, like guys were like, oh, I would never be gay. I can't believe it. Why would they even call me gay? Why did a gay man hit on me? I'm like, when a guy's comfortable with his sexuality enough to like even pretend to be gay for a second, to me, that's like, wow, you literally are so comfortable in your own skin. You have so much confidence. You don't care what people think about you. You don't care about these gender roles. You don't need anybody to tell you who you are. And I really find that attractive. I don't like guys who are brute and like, oh, I need to be the best man in the room. And that's for me.
It leans on extremes.
But men that understand alpha women, they'll ignore everything you said and they'll do what you actually want. Because women don't like a man to have to be told. They like a guy that already knows it.
Fine to be told what to do, but in terms of someone being the alpha and beta, like, yeah, it's important that the man also like takes charge, but it's not the fact that the men should always take charge and the women should always be like this second hand or this, like, you know, they say men are the head, but women are the neck, you know?
What's that?
What she's leaning on is binary extremes. And
exactly.
She's said this on several different occasions already. What she thinks, and of course, she leans on the idea of, well, I don't want a doormat guy, but I don't want a guy who's all puffed up and everything. That's a binary extreme, right? Okay, so it's either Hulk Hogan or it's Pajama Boy, right? That's those are my two options to deal with, right? So, and that's how she describes things. Now, of course, her behaviors will belie the actual, you know, what she really wants. She can talk about it all day. This is why I keep saying, like, guys, never appeal. Don't appeal to women's reason. You only appeal with their emotion, because this right here is a woman trying to reason, and her reasoning is, I need a guy who's comfortable in his own skin. I need a guy who's secure, not insecure, or he can pretend to be gay if he wants to be, or he's not worried about. It's like, what about this? Okay, so by that logic, I could also say this is, I am secure enough in my masculinity to be uncomfortable with that. Is that okay? Because if I say, you know what, this is my masculinity and I don't want to have anything to do with that, I don't want to wear pink. I'm not going to wear pink. Whoa, you insecure in your masculinity? No, I'm so secure in my masculinity that I'm not going to do what you want me to do.
Right.
I'm not going to wear pink. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not the way that I am. Do you want me to? You just took 4 minutes telling me about how you want a guy who's going to, or how guys can't handle alpha females. Guess what? That's how I handle alpha females. Is exactly. I put you into my frame, right? And the other part of this is like, so, well, I can't, guys can't really handle an alpha female. No, they don't want to. And the guys that can, or the guys that see, the guys that would be attractive, or the guys that would be into an alpha female, are there because they're okay with that role. They have no other options but to be okay with being in the submissive role. I think what she really wants is this big, burly, like, bodybuilding dude who just kind of like lays there and lets her do whatever she wants, right? Well, that's the ideal, right, for her at this point.
I think she's in denial of what she wants, right? So because like the what I have found, like in just my personal experience with these women that think they're the alpha females, is that they want a guy that's extremely dominant, that can overcome all of these things. And so they know they can't find that guy for the most part. So they settle, they use a different strategy, and they settle for what you said is like a guy that kind of looks like the part, but they can dominate, but they get bored of that guy really quickly, right? Sure, maybe she does like tying up a guy. Then she kind of asserts her dominance. She's done with him. She had her fun. She got to feel like, but she never got what she was really looking for, which was the acceptance of the alpha guys. But she's never going to actually get the true acceptance of the alpha guys she's looking for. Just like the Tomi Lahren thing, it's the same exact thing.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole thing. I did a 2 hour plus thing on Tomi Lahren. Tomi Lahren is a good example of this, because like Tomi Lahren is 28 years old now. So she is certainly within striking range of the epiphany phase, and she sees it. And she is going to, I think that whatever this girl's name is, she's going to be a very close parallel to Tomi Lahren by the time she gets to be like, say, about 29 or 30 years old. Because she will believe she's entitled to the guy who can handle an alpha female. She's already regurgitating or parroting back all of the same kind of boilerplate, what I call social conventions that are already there for her, right? So the reason why she'll be able to explain why she can't find the right guy, because men are infantile, or they can't handle a strong woman, or they feel threatened by a strong woman. We've heard that since like the mid 70s. It's literally the same language that Gloria Steinem and the militant feminists of the 70s were using. They're still using it today. That's how old this stuff is. A 26, 25, 26-year-old woman is using the exact same language as Gloria Steinem did in 1972. Right. So when I see this, I see parallels to, she's going to be Tomi Lahren very soon, because I will guarantee you that within, I would say 3 to 4 years, she will sound like, how come there's no guys that can, where are the good guys? What happened to this guy? What, or else she will settle on a guy who is sort of like the beta male guy, the guy who's the passive submissive kind of guy. She will breed with that guy, or she'll get into a long-term relationship with him. And then probably by like time she's 34, 35, she will have divorced that guy, because she will finally have learned something about herself, right? It's her self-discovery. And now she's a different person. And I'm looking for a man who can, take care of business. Again, when I did preventive medicine and I did the timeline for that whole thing, it was so guys will know what to expect at different age brackets, let's just say, for women. She's in an age bracket right now where she's very full of herself, because she's kind of coming out of the peak years of her sexual market value, but she still believes she's marketable enough to to believe in the bullshit until she gets to be 30. And then that bullshit kind of the gloss fades off of that. But guess what? When she gets to that point, there's social conventions that will convince her that she's still right, and it's men's fault for not wanting to be with her or not choosing. That what she'll find is when she gets to be 31 years old, the men that she wants to get with will have the sexual selectivity to say, not you. I want the 22-year-old. I want the hot out piece of ass I couldn't get when I was 22. Now I'm 32, 33, 34. I'm hitting my stride. Why would I go with you, who still are clinging to these old order ways of thinking about men and women? She'll change her thinking then, but she knows what's good for her. She's not too hubristic to not do that, but eventually she'll change her thinking. And then she'll say, oh, well, I'm really, I want to cook pies and have babies now.
Exactly. And the guys that like, the reason why like Tomi Lahren and her, like, they complain is the guys that will hook up with them are going to be the guys that are going to be like, okay, she's hot. Let me just get some drinks. Let me just like try and not talk to her as much as possible. I'll fuck her. And then tomorrow, I'll get her to leave, and then I won't have to hear her bullshit, because they're not. And that's why they're getting into these situations, is because they're the alpha female, right? Is the guy that maybe in this case, like, she's attractive enough that guys do want to fuck her, but they're not going to want to be with her. And that's why I think that's really, like, when you see the butt hurtness of Tomi Lahren, is because that's who she's primarily encountering. She's going after these alpha men who, and like you said earlier, they think that those alpha male characteristics that they possess of having this career and being an ambitious woman, they think that those are attractive traits because those are attractive traits to them in men, and they don't understand. Tommy Lauren has said, value, right? And so they think those are attractive traits, and the men aren't attracted. They're only attracted. That's why they're pump and dump on those girls, is because it's so annoying to listen to them.
Tommy Lauren believes that she has value that is not being appreciated. That's what she's really saying, is appreciate my value, appreciate the value that. And here's the thing, is like, guys, again, when we're looking for fertility and youth and availability, that's pretty much our 3 criteria. And she has that, or she's had that. I know people like throw, oh, she's not all that hot. Whatever, dude. Like, she's hotter than most girls that you probably see, right? I mean, she's hot enough to get guy. I know her background, so I know where she's at. But when women say respect my value, the problem is that most women between the ages of, say, like 18 and about 27 years old, like right before they get to the epiphany phase, they are so used to having such high value, like $1 million OnlyFans for Bella Thorne, right? That's their agency, that's their power. When they start to lose that and other women outclass them in that sexuality, then they expect men to be, oh, how come men can't grow up? How come they can't appreciate my value? What other value do you have beyond the sexuality you've been using for the last 10 years? Right. What is that? Do you bake pies? Do you clean house? Do you go to church on Sundays? Tell me what that is. And you know what? The reason why men don't value you for things beyond your sexuality is because that's all you've ever commodified for the last 10 years. The only thing valuable about you has been the sexuality that you keep insisting is the only thing that's valuable about you. Well, what else are we supposed to think, right? Well, I need a girl who's going to be a good mother to my kids. That ain't you, because for the last 10 years on OnlyFans, you've been making $1 million every 24 hours. I don't want you raising my kids, because that's all that is. Exactly. I'm being facetious here, and I got to go. But the thing about value added, I would suggest that if you're a young woman and you're watching this, and if this lady is watching as well, focus on value added and not the I'm a tough bitch careerist alpha female. That's not value. Men don't value that. They don't care about that. They care about feminine traits. They care about feminine qualities. Be an alpha female, an actual real alpha female in a female context, because that's what men will value. That's value added. And that's what I want. I'll just end with this, is that most women, they commodify their sexuality to the point where that's the only thing that makes them valuable whatsoever. They don't find, value feminine traits. If you want to add value, like value added, you as a woman need to start valuing feminine traits, even if that means you have to be submissive, even if that means you have to sort of learn to whatever, learn humility, learn grace, learn poise, all that shit that you were supposed to be learning in pageant world, that stuff. Take that seriously. Actually use that. Actually have some humility. Find some deference. Defer to men's authority, enter into his frame, accept the fact that you want a guy who is not your equal, but is above you, that still loves you in spite of all of that. That's the guy that you need to get with. That's the guy who's going to say, yes, I do value that. That's value added. All of your careerist bullshit is not anything that why do I want to get in? I got to deal with that at work all day long. Why do I want to deal with it at home? Why would I want to do that? Value added. First of all, when women say, oh, you need to value. Okay, what are we talking about? What is value? What constitutes value? Is it you having an independent, your value, like this woman and Tommy Lauren said the same thing. They said, it will be a cold day in hell when I chase a man. So I'm not needed. Why would I bother with you? Why would I have any appreciation for your value if you don't need me?
Right. And that's the opposite game. It's the wrong game for women.
It's a long game for women, because they realize that at some point their sexual market value is going to decay.
Yeah. They need to actually chase men.
They're perishable, right? It's perishable. So they get to be 30, 32. It's like, they'll be chasing, but they don't realize that the things that they think make them attractive are actually the things that make men attractive.
Exactly.
You know what, ladies? You start valuing value. You start valuing the things that would make you appreciable by other men. Right. And it's not your careerist bullshit path. It's the feminine things. It's conventional femininity, and because they're too full of themselves right now. They've been taught since the time they were little girls by fucking Disney and Frozen and everything else that, oh, you don't need no man. It'll be a cold day in hell when I chase a man. Yeah, that's what Elsa said. That's what I don't know. The Little Mermaid said, right? That shit, right? That's still, it's coming back out, but they don't realize that that grace, that poise, that the things, that the traditional feminine qualities, you need to value that before a man can value that, because you'll never have that. You'll never get that value from men unless you have that and you value it yourself.
Right. You have to treat men like a king. Like that. That's the thing. Is like those, the women that treat men with, well, okay, a man will have an affair with a woman who's not as attractive as his wife or girlfriend because she gives him respect and boosts his ego. Mm-hmm. And women don't understand that.
So women will say, well, that you just have a fragile ego. Well, it's not a fragile ego. The reason why men cheat is two reasons. It's opportunity and a reason. Mm-hmm. So opportunity, most men don't have the opportunity to cheat. They would love to cheat, but they can't because they're too fat, they're too slow, they're too blue pill, whatever. They don't have the opportunity. They have lots of reason to cheat, but they have no opportunity to cheat. And then you have guys who have a reason, then you have guys who have reason but no opportunity. So it's a back and forth kind of thing.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Rollo. Appreciate you taking the time. I think this was great here. Anything you want to promote? I was going to say, I have the book here, guys.
I'll be doing my Wednesday show tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm deciding whether I'm going to do it on Patreon or I'm going to do it on. Depends on what my topic is. I will be doing. If I do a live one on YouTube tomorrow, then I'll be doing a Thursday show for my Patreon subscribers. So I do a private show for my Patreon subscribers.
Okay, awesome. I've got the link below, guys, for Rollo's channel. Go check it out. Go subscribe. If you haven't read Rational Male, all the books that start with Rational Male, obviously, go read them. I've got a link here as well. So
cool. All right, man.
All right.
Thanks, John. Yep.